Welcome to Mexico, everybody. We are here for round 18 of the 100% League, Season 3 then, and we are already cracking through qualifying. Well, 2 minutes done of qualifying. So far, so good. For Jinner then, who's going to start us off underway. Unfortunately for Young Lutz, he has retired in the pit lane. Not quite sure what's happened then to the Kick Sauber driver. Then welcome along then to the stream then. Welcome along to 71 laps of Mexican action here, plus qualifying. Of course, the qualifying sets the grid then for the start of the Grand Prix then. Even and all from Ginner then, good luck to all from R2Beat and ALR with a fire emoji then for Equaz as well then. Good stuff indeed then. Thank you very much indeed as well then. And looking forward to the support then, and of course the action on the track then from the 20 drivers then here tonight in Mexico then. Of course, this is going to be a preview then for gold, silver and bronze coming up on Sunday, Monday and Tuesday respectively. And I'm not quite sure if we've got any audio then from the... have we got any audio? I can't hear the game audio then. That's terrible stuff indeed. Oh, there we go. Yep, good stuff. We have got some audio then. Good stuff indeed. Fantastic. I just want to double check that. That's good. That's all good then. Good stuff. Right, here comes Ginner then coming through into Sector 3 then. Of course, he's the first man on track tonight in qualifying, that is. And we will see what he can do then on the medium compound tyre. So he is going to go for, well, slightly slower potentially in terms of quality pace, that tyre then. But we'll have to wait and see then what car number 5 can do then as he rounds the final corner then to finish off the first lap here in qualifying. A 14.4 then to set the pace and to set the standard then for qualifying at the moment. That is, goodness me, Sick as Muck having a bit of a problem then through the S's section of Sector 2. But there we are then. Where is R2Beat? I think we just saw it's a Williams coming across the line then, starting off a lap. It's Equaz. Away he goes. And that is good stuff indeed. There's yellow flags, and I think for Sick as Muck, he seems to be having some sort of issue out there. Hopefully he can get that sorted then before he starts off his flying lap. Then R2Beat is on a flying lap. There's a racing ball getting out the way as we go through the stadium section then, and this smoke that they have of course patched then to make sure that it doesn't affect people's vision has made it worse. So good stuff indeed. Then R2Beat up into P3 with a 15.5. Then Mumford then a 15.3 for the Haas driver. Then of course he got himself onto the podium last week in the US of A. And away we go then. Kamar Racer a 15.7 then for the Racing Bull driver. Then more yellow flags out there as we've got who we got. Geordie Boxtel up to a 15.0 then in the Haas, then reserving tonight then in place of Cam, and looking good indeed then in the Haas then so far. Then Vessia with a 14.5 then puts himself P2 onto the front row for the Aston Martin as well. Great stuff indeed then, and looking pretty good out there as well. Then I'm not quite sure what is happening. Then there we go. Hopefully we can get some better audio then from the game as well, because I can't hear any audio at all actually, but we can hear it when we go on board, just about. So there we go then. Hopefully you guys can hear some game audio as well then. Let me know if there's any sound issues then in the comment section. Then Justify then a 15.8 then puts himself up into P7 then as it stands. Then Sick as Muck then having a horrible time then through the middle sector. Then he's gone over the circuit once again then as the Ferrari driver then. I'm not quite sure what is going on there, but there we go. Nonetheless, Kiki then rounding the penultimate corner then to finish off the lap then for his first outing in qualifying. Here he comes up to the line then for the Racing Bull. It's P4 splitting the two Hasses, sorry, with a 15.1 then. Good stuff indeed for Kiki. On to the second row of the grid then. Astra Johnson a 15.4 puts himself P6 for the time being in the McLaren, reserving it tonight in place of Mushroom, who is of course recovering from his surgery as well then. So hopefully Mushroom then will bounce back soon, and he did bounce back very well indeed then last night in bronze. But he did say it took quite a lot out in the bronze race last night, only a 50% race as well then. So he didn't want to take part then here tonight, because it's going to be a bit much of a strain then on his well, whatever. Yeah, so there we go. But hopefully he's recovering nicely, and we'll see him back very soon. Here comes Equaz now into the stadium section then, and through the slaloming hairpins really of sector 3. Now onto the final stretch, and here he comes up to the line for Equaz. Then of course championship leader now as it stands then, but he's done himself a good job indeed. Then a 14.7 puts himself into P3, and there is what is that then? There is a well, Kick Sauber getting a very nice tow indeed then from that Williams car then as we go down into turn 1 then. I think that might be Percy. Yellow flags are fluttering then for somebody or other, but hopefully they can get themselves sorted and out of the way then. R2Beat, I think, coming back into the pit lane after finishing his first outing. He is P8 as it stands. Dear me, having a bit of a problem then getting through the stadium section then within track limits there, let's just put it that way. Sick as Muck's done at 15.5, puts himself P8 then, displacing R2Beat down to P9 as it stands. Then Justify the slowest of the time runners at the moment, but of course there is still quite a few then to get themselves out on circuit as well here. Good stuff indeed. Now here comes Percy then. Percy then in the Kick Sauber then Have we just got a bit of rain coming? I think there might be some rain on the horizon here in qualifying then, which is not going to be very good news for those who haven't got themselves out on track just yet. It is looking a bit overcast here in Mexico City then, but through the S's section now, or through the hairpin section then of the stadium, as here comes Lucas Percy then on his first lap here in qualifying, then up to the line then for the kicks out. Then what's it going to be? It's P1 with a 14.402, and that is almost, well, it's over 4.5 tenths ahead of Ginner then currently. Then that is fantastic stuff indeed then from the kicks out. But then of course he got a bit of a helping hand as well down this main straight then, didn't he? But that is still a pretty good time indeed. Mumford then looking to start off another lap here as well. Then where is the Racing Bull of Kamara Racing then starting off another lap as well? Then Justify I think coming back, no, it's Sick as Muck coming back into the pit lane now to finish off the in lap. Equaz has left the session. So unfortunately for Equaz, he's having a few issues as well there. Evening all from Mushroom as well. Then luckily Equaz got himself a time in before that issue then as well. Then Lewis Riley then coming round the final corner then to finish off his first lap. Here comes the Alpine, and it's P9 for Lewis Riley then. A 15.494 puts himself into the top 10. He's been displaced down to P10 though by Cooper. He's gone up to P7 then in the Williams. A 15.2. Ginner then has done a absolutely brilliant time then. He's done a 14.1 then in the Mercedes then. Brilliant stuff indeed. That's almost 2.5 tenths ahead of Lucas Percy, or just a bit more than 2.5 tenths actually then, but brilliant stuff indeed then from Ginner then taking pole position as it stands then. Fantastic. Equaz has joined back then. Good stuff from him. Vessia, starting off another lap as well then. Lucas Percy coming back into the pit lane I think here, unless he's going to go for another outing around this circuit then on the same tyres, same fuel load. Yes, he is. He's going away. He's going away now. He's going away. He's going away. He is away as we go down the main straight once again then. Haas then of Mumford then finishing off a lap. Then Mumford up into P4. 14.7 then for Mumford there. Good stuff indeed. Kamara jumps up to P8 then, just behind his teammate of Kiki then. A 15.2 then for the Racing Bull, and looking pretty good indeed. Then there's an Alpine then of I think that's Lewis Riley coming back into the pit lane here, unless he's going to do the same as Percy and go again on his next attempt. Then Coop then also harvesting some energy and then coming back round into the pit lane potentially. And Ginner then is looking pretty good then. Pole position as it stands then for the Mercedes driver then. Fantastic stuff indeed. So far so good then for Ginner, who has got himself a 2.5 tenth, or just over 2.5 tenth gap then to P2 of Lucas Percy, who is coming back out on a lap then once again then through sector 2 then through the S's section. This is where it gets a bit tight on track limits, let's just say, but he's got himself through there very nicely indeed. And now into the stadium section then, and that car then is not unfortunately a bit unsettled then on the curbs I think there, and that has caused Percy then to abandon his lap time then, and unfortunately that is his qualifying lap then. On that lap then done and dusted as well then, but that's all good in the hood. Geordie then starting off another lap then. Kamara Race going back into the pit lane as well. We got a kick Sauber then of Percy then returning to the pits here as well then. Good stuff indeed. Action on track then, a bit quiet out then Gordo's got himself sorted and back out onto the circuit. Let's see what Gordo can do then in the Aston Martin, then coming through Sector 2 now as well, then heading into the slaloming S's section then of Sector 2, then making sure you get the entry point right then is key and paramount then on this circuit then, because it can upset your lap then later on then. Unfortunately for Gordo, then he's invalidated his time then going through the S's section then. Unfortunately for the Aston Martin driver, then that is his qualifying lap on that occasion done and dusted. Geordie Boxtel has found 9,000th of a second then in Sector 1, then that would improve his time, but unfortunately not enough to gain him a place then, or position in this qualifying at this stage. But now into the, oh dear, Kiki then going through the first couple of turns then through the chicane then. Unfortunately for Kiki then losing the car, and Geordie Boxtel then, let's see what he can do then in Sector 2 then. I didn't see what the Delta was saying, but there we go. There we go. He's now 7,000 of a second up, so he's lost 2,000 unfortunately then in Sector 2, but still improving just about then. But let's see what he can do then in Sector 3 then. Can he find some more time then? Can he take himself up the order then into the onto the second row, or even the first row of the grid then? Here he comes round the final corner then. Let's see what Geordie can do. He has improved then, but he stays P6 for the time being then, but he's into the 14.9s now for the Haas then. Good stuff indeed. Very good stuff indeed then. Kiki then unfortunately having that issue then in the first chicane then has had to abandon his time or abandon his lap then on that occasion. Then Astrotron has also invalidated his time. Then he's currently P10 at this stage. Then Justifies back out on circuit, then starting off another lap now as well. Then Gordo has invalidated again then for the Aston Martin. Unfortunately then that is him having to come back to the pit then. I think then he's going to have to run out of fuel. He's going to run out of fuel very soon I think, and if he stays out that much longer. Now into the S's then comes Equaz then of course championship leader then in the Williams then. He is under pressure then from R2 beat in the Alpine and Gordo himself in the Aston Martin then for that championship top spot then. But can he hold on to it now is the question then for the next 5 rounds or 4 and a bit rounds now as we start off the 5th last round of the season. Then here we go then into the final corners. Then here comes Equaz. Then can he improve on P5? Can he improve on a 14.798? Then yes he can then by a 1/10 of a second then up into P4 then and displaces Mumford down to P5. Brilliant stuff indeed from Equaz then onto the second row of the grid then and looking pretty good indeed. Then he's still, although I have to say he's still, oh dear, Ginner's had a bit of a problem then trying to keep it on circuit then, but like I was saying, Ginner is still half a second or so away then from the current championship leader of Equaz. Of course, different machinery then, of course, as they're in not equal cars in this event league, but that is the reason why we're seeing different drivers then doing much better than they're much better and much worse depending on which category they're in. But of course, they are of course all fighting together then and all working together as well then in this championship then. But here comes Ginner then. Can Ginner get himself an improvement then on his current time of 1 minute 14.132? It looks like he's going to keep on going then round this lap then to finish off the lap. Then no, he's coming back to the pit lane, and that is that. Called it a day. Right, then Kiki then starting off another lap. Then Kamara Racer coming through into Sector 2 now in the Racing Bull. Where is Justify? Justify heading through in towards the second sector now. Gordo's just finishing off a lap now. I think, oh, can Gordo get himself a time on the board then is what he needs. A 15.3 puts himself P11 just outside the top 10 as it stands. And that's his first time then in this session as well. Then Ginger Age is on circuit as well. Then goodness me, watch out everybody. Swan Shanks is also out on track as well in the Red Bull, then reserving in place of Vintage tonight then. And of course he is looking to see if what he can do then. Can he get himself some good points? Can he get the Red Bull team some good points here tonight as well? We will find out then. Here comes Kamara Racer then. Oh no, he's abandoned his time I think. Has Kamara then unfortunately coming back into the pit lane, is he? Nope, he is carried on then. He's starting off another lap then. I think this might be Kamara's one and done lap then at the end of this session. Then I'm not sure he's going to have time to go back round and do another out lap again then on a new set of tyres and whilst coming into the pit lane in between. So we'll have to wait and see then. Looks like R2B coming back to the pits as well and unfortunately invalidating his time there and having to get himself back into the box then. Through the first chicane then comes Kamara Racer then. Very neatly done indeed then. Unfortunately for Geeky then, he's done a better job then as Kamara then than his teammate on the previous attempt, that is. But not using DRS then down this straight. It doesn't look like anyway. Something about reading comments and keep comments short and simple. We do appreciate your effort. Also watch your spelling, says German then. Fantastic. All right then. Okay, so luckily I'm not typing in the chat then, but I don't have to worry about that. But yeah, good luck to all commenters then. Hopefully that German will be policing and whatever he's doing in the chat. There we go. Good stuff. Swan Shanks then has unfortunately invalidated his time. He's done a 15.5, puts himself P15 at the moment. Ginger Age has done a 16.1 then. Unfortunately not the pole position that Ginger Age was hoping for tonight then, but hopefully he can turn that around then in the next 2.5 minutes. But we will wait and see. Hungry Styles then still in the pit lane. Unfortunately, Young Light's not in the session, I don't think, actually. Hopefully he's got himself back in, and Reflection stuck in the pits as well then. So that is that then for those drivers. And Justify starting off another lap, I think, very soon. Yes, the Ferrari then back underway. Then P11 at the moment then for Justify. Can he get himself into the points? Then his first points of the season this would be if he can get some on the board tonight. Of course, he did join a bit later on through the start of the season. But he has done a good job then in the Ferrari then since then as well. Gordo said, my setup is disgusting. That's unfortunate for Gordo because he's currently P12 then with a 15.394, looking to improve on that as well then. But hopefully the setup is good for the race then, not so much for the qualifying. Then we'll have to wait and see. This, of course, there is a difference, but whether it is a substantial difference or not, then it's going to be a well, we're going to have to find out then after 71 laps then of the Mexican Grand Prix. Kamara Racer in the pit lane is retired and done and dusted, and I think in that Racing Bull, then unfortunately not going to be able to get back out in time for Kamara Racer. Then he is done and dusted, and outlap then for R2 beat then Coop and Coop and somebody else then. I think that was Lucas Percy coming through then down towards turn 4. And there's all sorts of weaving in the background, I think, of cars coming out of the pit lane to start off their final laps here there. But these two are on a final lap. They are very close indeed in proximity then, but fingers crossed they can not cock it up then, and they can get themselves over the start-finish line then to finish off their qualifying here in Mexico City. So far so good then. Good luck then from Styles as well. Then Styles then in the Red Bull tonight then, but he is not qualifying. It doesn't look like he's not got himself out of the pit lane, unfortunately for Styles. But there we go then into sector 3. Then Coop is 2/10 up on his time. Then that will put him into the top 10 quite comfortably as well as it stands. Then up into P7 or that sort of range. Let's see what he can do then through the final couple of corners. Lucas Percy then crossed the line. Then can Lucas Percy take pole position? Yes, he can. It's a 14-1. He's 10,000 of a second ahead then. Where's Coop gone? Coop's gone up to P5 then with a 14.7. Brilliant stuff indeed then from the Williams driver then. And I think he got a nice little toe then at some points of the circuit then from this man here, Lucas Percy, then, who's currently on to pole position then. But can Jinner say something about that then? What's Jinner going to do then up to the line? Here he comes then. Jinner then has not improved. Then he stays P2 then, unfortunately for Jinner then. And the checkered flag has fallen then. Geordie Boxdale is P7, then he's done and dusted in qualifying. Ginger Rage then P17, unfortunately for him. Then Hungry Styles and Reflection stuck in the pit lane then. That is then done and dusted in qualifying as well then. Where is Astra John then? That is Ginger Rage coming around the circuit then, so that's not Astra John. We'll come back to him then. Justify has invalidated his time then. R2 beat, it's not R2 beat either, it's Lewis Riley then through the final corner. Then let's see what Lewis Riley can do, and he stays P14 but has improved on his time as well then. Aston Martin then of Gordo, then that's not Gordo, that is his teammate of Vessia. Then Vessia stays P3, then brilliant stuff indeed from Vessia this qualifying, then up into the podium places then at the starting grid. Then Astra John stays P9, times tumbling in. Then Justify has, no sorry, Sick as Luck jump up to P13 then. Who's next across the line then? Where is R2B going to be as well? Then R2B unfortunately has invalidated his time, so that is him done and dusted in qualifying here. Then Gordo as well has invalidated as well, then unfortunately for him he is done and dusted in qualifying. Kiki then coming through the final corner, then can Kiki improve on P8? Then here he comes up to the line for the final time, and it is P7. Then he displaces Geordie Boxdale down to P8 then, but splitting the two Haas pair once again then. And I think that is qualifying done and dusted. Then Jinner is into the pits as well. Then Swanshanks coming through then, but unfortunately for Swanshanks, he's not improving on his previous best time as well then. So he will be done and dusted in P16 in qualifying here. So that is the end of the session, I think then, as Gordo then getting himself parked up in the pits. And unfortunately P14 for Gordo, then he's having a bit of issues with his setup, he said there. So this should be fun, he says. Good luck all then. Don't think I will read all the comments, says Styles then. And the lap was 7/10 better, says Gordo then. So this should be fun. Right then, it's going to be pretty fun then. Let's see what it's going to be like then for Gordo and for the other 19 drivers. Then of course there's championship permutations then to come. Not in this round then, but of course there can be winners and losers in this round then to promote them into a better position in the championship fight. Lucas Percy then, of course, he is not in the championship fight tonight, but he is in P1 then on the front row of the grid then, with Jinner then in P2, Vessia then P3, Equaz, who is in the championship fight, currently leading the title then as well then in P4, Williams, his teammate of Coop then in P5, Mumford P6, Kiki in P7, Geordie Boxdale P8, Astra John then P9, Kamara Racer in P10, R2B just outside the top 10 is in the championship fight as well then, Justify in P12, Sick as Muck, his teammate in the Ferrari then P13, Gordo, who's in the championship fight in the Aston Martin P14. Lewis Riley in P15, Swanshanks P16, Ginger Rage rounds off the timed runners then, and Hungry Styles, Young Lights and Reflection are in the back of the grid then. Unfortunately no time on the board for those three. Why am I not on pole, says Ginger Rage then. I'm not quite sure. I think you didn't set the grid up properly. So there we go then. But that is the order for qualifying then. We'll get ourselves underway with the formation lap very shortly, but in the meantime we'll have a quick word from our lovely sponsors. Right then, we are ready to get going. It's still a bit overcast here in Mexico City, but it's not raining just yet then, but we start off the race in the dry. Will we finish the race in the dry is the question then. Or will we have a nice bit of a sprinkle in the middle of the race? We never know. I think being the host makes you slower, says Ginger Age. Well, that will explain why I'm so slow in gold. But I'm not quite sure that is the case then. But there we go. Right then, tyre situation then for the drivers as we get ourselves moving then for the formation lap. And there is a bit of a splattering then of different compounds throughout the field then. Good stuff indeed. Gordo has said, back on the normal account. Good luck. Oh, says Gordo then. Good stuff. Right then, he has got himself sorted. Then everyone else has got himself sorted and away for the formation lap then. Reflection then, hard compound tyres from P20. Then Young Lights as well, hard compound tyres. And Hungry Styles on the hard compound. Unfortunately, those three drivers then didn't set a time in qualifying. So needed to get themselves sorted then and get themselves out of the garage then, but couldn't find the keys. But they have hopefully got themselves sorted now for the start of this Grand Prix. Then Ginger Age, then P17, then on the medium compound tyres, then as is Swanshanks in the Red Bull, then reserving tonight then in place of Vintage on the medium compound tyre as well. And Young Lights has said, forgot to put my setup on. So unfortunately for Young Lights, he's going to have a bit of a problem up there, I think, without a setup around here. But we'll see how it goes. Lewis Riley then on the mediums in the Alpine, then as is Gordo. Then, of course, championship protagonist then is Gordo in the Aston Martin. Then going down in P14 after a difficult qualifying. Then can he turn it around in the race from that position? Then we'll have to wait and see. Medium compound tyres for him, then Sick as Muck and Justify in the Ferraris have switched the strategies then down at Ferrari. Hard compound tyres then for Sick as Muck, then Justify in P12 then on the medium compound tyres. After beat starting on the mediums just outside the top 10, then of course he's in the championship fight then with Equaz and Gordo as well outside the points then for the start of this Grand Prix. Then Kamara Racer P10 then on the medium compound tyres, as is Astrodron then reserving in place of Serious Mushroom tonight. Geordie Boxtel hard compound tyres then for the Haas driver, then reserving in place of Cam. Kiki then in a sandwich then with the Hasses then, but P7 for him then medium compound tyres, as is Mumford in the other Haas then in P6. Coupe then on the soft compound tyres then, one of two on the soft compound tyres at the start of this Grand Prix. Then Equaz hard compound tyres in P4 then, and Vessia then medium compound tyres in the Aston Martin P3. Then Ginner's opted for the hard compound tyres from P2 on the front row, and Lucas Percy, our pole sitter, then starts the race then on the soft compound tyre. Here we go then. 5 red lights are on here in Mexico. The 5 red lights are out and away we go then for the Mexican Grand Prix. A good start then from Ginger Age in the background there. Fantastic stuff indeed. But Lucas Percy leads us away then down towards turn 1. It's a very long run down towards turn 1. There could be some chopping and changing as we go into the first chicane here on lap 1. As we fly into that braking zone as well. Then there's contact then I think in the background there almost. Lucas Percy's got himself through then up in the race lead. And he takes hold of the race lead. Stays in the race lead I should say then after the battling then into turn 1. Quite a lot of chopping and changing in the back of the field then as Equaz and Coupe, then Ginner as well involved with the Williams pair then as we go through into Sector 2 and they've held station. And Vessia's got himself up into P2. Then of course Ginner started on the hard compound tyres, so he's going to be a bit slower than those on the mediums, the softs at this stage of the race. And of course in the first few laps of this Grand Prix as well, then Gordo's got himself up 4 places then with a fantastic start, as has Reflection as well then. Brilliant stuff indeed. Mumford's had an issue then into the first chicane I think there. He has got his wing intact thankfully, but unfortunately dropping down 11 places then as well. Then goodness me, then Ginger Age has dropped to the back of the field then as well. Then I'm not sure what happened to Ginger Age into turn 1 there, but he had an issue somewhere and that has been costly indeed for the McLaren driver as we go through into the stadium section for the first time then to finish off lap 1 of 71. But the course of the lap is quite a short lap indeed, so hopefully we'll tick through these quite quickly indeed as well. Right then, here we are then. Lucas Percy sets the fastest lap of the race then, sending ourselves underway then for lap 2. DRS now available then, but not down this main straight just yet because the detection point is behind the start-finish line. So there we go then, heading down towards turn 1, then Coupe passing Equaz now into the first chicane then, and we fly through there. There's quite a lot of gaggling of cars then as we go through into the main straight then down towards the first chicane, and that's where it can get a bit dicey as well with the competitors going through that chicane as well, then heading into the heavy braking zone at turn 1 then, but they've managed to sort themselves out. Then here comes Astrodron and R2 Pete, then goodness me, R2 Pete then off the circuit completely there, and that is going to be a problem then for R2B has got a 3-second penalty for corner cutting as well then. And oh my god, there's a, oh dear, Justify's just gone diving down the inside then of the Alpine. Then he's been collected then by the Alpine as well then as we go into sector 2. And oh my goodness me, Swanshank's in a bit of a Ferrari sandwich now as well as we go through into the slaloming S's section as well of lap 2. It's been action-packed already in the first lap and a half, to be fair, which has been pretty good indeed then. Vessia then trying to hold on to Lucas Percy. Now DRS is available then down the main straight then on this next lap then, but Lucas Percy has extended that gap to over 1 second now, which is just what he needs then to stay away from that rear wing opening on the back of that Aston Martin then down this main straight, which is where it's very powerful indeed. Can Vessia get himself back in contention? Yes, he can. Then he's not got DRS, but he's got some battery power then has the Aston Martin as we go down towards turn 1 once again. Then Ginner has unfortunately dropped off the back. Then now Coupe and Equaz are trying to sniff then for that P3 position. Then Gordo has got himself up into P7, then passing Geordie for that P7 position. Then Geordie has held station then in P8 from the start of the Grand Prix on the hard compound tyres as well, though. Coupe has been passed. No, Ginner, sorry, has been passed by Coupe then, has he? Not quite then. Mumford Players has left the session. I'm not quite sure if there's a connection issue then for Mumford or if that's just a rage quit then from Mumford then. I'm not sure. But hopefully he can get himself sorted and back underway then in this race then. Young Lights then struggling, of course, with no setup on that car as well. Then heading through into Sector 3 very shortly then for Lucas Percy. Then he has not been able to get himself away then from the attacks then of the Aston Martin of Vessia. Of course, Vessia on the medium compound tyre. Equaz has passed Coupe now, so the Williams then drivers switching places and switching roles and switching positions then in this lap 3. Of course, he's on the soft compound tyres though, is Coupe, so you would imagine then if they wanted to work together as a team, they would put the soft compound tyre runner then ahead of the hard compound tyre runner there. But I'm not going to throw shade. I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm just commentating, to be fair. So there we go. DRS then down towards turn 1 then for those two as well, then heading through into the first chicane on lap 4. Then Young Lights has got a 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane and retiring in the pit lane as pit and quit then for Young Lights, and that is him out of the Grand Prix then only on lap 4. Then Gordo and Kiki then battling away then through the first chicane. Then goodness me, where are they then? There is Kiki, and Gordo has snuck ahead then. He's stayed ahead then of the out of the Racing Bull. Then Coupe as well then, as Coupe struggling on the soft compound tyres. He's lost out to Gordo. Mumford has brought himself back in the session. Coupe then has got the inside. It turns to the outside. It turns back to the inside. Then now it's on the outside, but I think he's got the position done and dusted then, and he's back up into P6 then ahead of Kiki. Good stuff indeed. Ginge last to first challenge then, says Mushroom. Then we will wait and see then. Young Lights then pitting and quitting. Then that is the first retirement then of this Grand Prix. Then unfortunately his ghost car is just taking a leisurely drive down towards turn 1. So hopefully he's got himself sorted and out of the way then before we get to before the rest of the pack gets to that sort of area. Let's switch to the tyre situation to see what is going on. There is the yellow flag still carry on, but hopefully that car can get itself out of the way in the next few moments or so. Then here comes Vessia then on the attack for the race lead. Here he comes now with some DRS. Then he's getting closer and closer before the DRS is even open then, and the Aston Martin then is lining up a move for the race lead here on the medium compound tyres. He has got the position then with DRS then into turn 1 and takes the lead of the Grand Prix here. Brilliant stuff indeed. Then Gordo's got himself past Equaz. Then Gordo, who was struggling with his setup in qualifying, then has gone from 14th then on into 4th then in the first 4 laps really. Brilliant stuff indeed from Gordo. Then he's on the charger here in the championship fight. Then Justify and R2B are battling away as well. Then R2B then dropping down to P12. Kiki and Coupe then switching places as Kiki goes down the inside then of turn 4 then, but now it switches to the inside or outside. I'm not quite sure which side. Kiki's gone off the circuit then, and now, oh god, there's contact between the Racing Bulls as well then. My goodness me, both the Racing Bulls having a few issues then. Gordo's got himself past Ginner, has he? Yes, he has. Then up into P3 now. Podium place now for the Aston Martin, and 3 seconds back from the top 2 there, but he's done a fantastic job in the opening stages of this race to get himself back in contention then for some big points here. Both the Racing Bulls having a bit of argy-bargy down there, but I'm not quite sure what happened then, as they've got themselves sorted now and thankfully are re-underway, I should say. And I'm not quite sure what is going on then with the game audio then, because it seems to be very quiet indeed. We have got some game audio then, but it's just being very very difficult on my point of view. Then hopefully maybe that will sort it. Who knows? But there we go then. Right then, Lucas Percy then trying to hold on to the attacks then, to the advances then of Vesia, then trying to keep him within sights as well. Then Gina then back past Gordon, then into the first chicane, then Justify and Astrojon then switching places into the first chicane as well. And R2 beat almost into the back then of the McLaren as we go through into the first turn. Then through the first chicane we go then, and Justify then has held on to that P10 position now and up into the points paying positions now for the Ferrari driver as well. Then good stuff indeed. Out in front then, as it stands, it is the gap still between Lucas Percy and Gina then currently 3 seconds or so then, but Gordo's gone sliding down the inside then into sector 2. Then he's got the position as well then, and now ahead of the Mercedes driver. Then we didn't see what happened there. Maybe Gina had a bit of a problem on the traction then, but lost out to Gordo, and Gordo back up into the podium places here. And now we go through into Sector 3 then, and Gino has taken back that place then with some brilliant pace. Then there's all sorts of problems then for Coop then in the background. Then he's sliding into the stadium section. There's contact with Kamara Racer again then. Those soft compound tyres then are not looking very good then for Coop then, unfortunately, out here. But he is really struggling to hold that car in contention then. Stay on the course, I should say. But my goodness me, that was very dodgy indeed then. There we go. Then Justify sets the fastest lap of the race. Then brilliant stuff indeed from Justify. He's on a charge here. Kiki has got himself past Coop as well. Then I'm not quite sure if Coop's tyres are just overheated at this stage of the race already then, and are starting to struggle. Then Gordo's got himself back past Gino. Has he? Yes, he has. Then into the first chicane. Then he's passed up into the podium place now for Gordo. Then, but Gino is still staying with him though as we go down towards turn 4. Then in the background we've got both the Racing Bulls once again. Then almost inside of each other. Then as we go down towards turn 4 as well. Then heading up towards the slaloming sector 2, and Gordo has held on to P3 for the time being. 3 seconds the gap then to the top 2. But so far so good then. Ginger Age is making progress in his last to first challenge, and he's got himself up into P17 now. Mumford unfortunately having that disconnect, and has got himself back in the car, then hopefully can get himself back underway as well in this Grand Prix. Then Lucas Percy trying to hold on to that Aston Martin, and I think maybe trying to eke out the strategy then, as we've seen with Coop then having the issues on the soft compound tyres. Potentially Percy's having the same problem already in this stint as well then, so we'll have to wait and see then if they can hold on or how far they can go in this stint and on those soft compound tyres. Lewis Riley and Reflection switching places then. Lewis Riley up into P14 now, passing Reflection for that position as well then, heading into the stadium section. Then he's got himself now a challenge then with Reflection, with Sick as Muck. Then Coop is in the pit lane. Coop calling it a day then on the soft compound tyres already then, so that is indicating that they are not very good then to use in this race at all then, it seems. But we'll find out then as we get ourselves into the box then what his next choice of tyre is going to be as well. Then Astrodron has lost out to Sick as Muck and to R2 Beat as we go into turn 1 now, and R2 Beat has got the position. Then he's into the points paying positions now as well then, is R2 Beat. Good stuff indeed. And away he goes then, heading through into Sector 2 very shortly. Then he's trying to chase down Justify as well here. Astrotron has been passed by Lewis Riley. Then Lewis Riley in the other Alpine is on the charge as well. Then into P12. Then good stuff indeed. Then out of the pits comes Coop. Then he's down to P19, but he's on a fresh set of medium compound tyres now. So he's done a pretty good job then to get himself through that first stint, then battling on in that first stint on those old soft compound tyres. Even though they were only 8 laps or 7 laps old, they were starting to struggle then after the first few laps, weren't they? Out in front, the gap now 1.9 seconds in, so it's coming down to the top 2. Then Sick as Muck's got a 3-second bonus, then going through in the stadium section, and here comes, into the S's section, I should say. And I think Swanshanks has done the same thing as well, then going through in the Red Bull car as well. And then, oh dear, Vessel was losing the front end, then going through that corner. Same for Lucas Percy in the kick Sauber as we go through here as well. Then yellow flags in the background. Then who is it for? I'm not quite sure. It is for somebody, but we don't know. So that's that. Yes, maybe for Reflection, unfortunately, he seems to have lost a few seconds there. Hopefully his car was all right. Then here comes Gino then on the attack. Then unfortunately he could not get himself past Gordo into the first chicane and stays P4 for the time being. Then Lucas Percy holding on then to the Aston Martin of Vesia. Sick as Muck and Lewis Riley then switching places then into the first chicane as well. Then Lewis Riley in a bit of a battle then with the Ferrari and the McLaren of Astra John right behind as well. Then R2 Beat has disappeared up the road now as well. Then good stuff from R2 Beat then getting past this challenging pack then, and now into a bit of clean air here at this stage. Good stuff so far. Then here comes Ginger Rage then on the attack then with Styles, and these two could get very feisty indeed, especially with Ginger Rage then having his rage. Well, yeah, there we go. Ginger Rage in the rage. Good stuff indeed. But yeah, so far so good. Then Lucas Percy then trying to challenge then for that race lead once again. Then of course started on pole position, then has lost out to Vessia a few laps ago now, but he's been staying to the tail of that Aston Martin for the time being, and I think. We saw Coop pit a couple of laps ago then. I think Lucas Percy might have to come into the pit lane very shortly as well and sort out the tyre situation as well. Then Geordie Boxdale's had an issue at the final corner then, getting himself back underway there, but he's lost out 2 places. Then Ginner has got himself past Gordo this time and now up into P3. Then he's caught up to the pack then, caught up to the race lead here as well then has Ginner, and now into the podium places then. Oh dear, Lucas Percy then is so slow through the first turn then, I think losing the back end slightly into the first quarter as well. Then that has unsettled the car, especially on the old soft compound tyres. Then Lewis Riley up into P11, then passing Sickersmuck, then just outside the points now for Lewis Riley. Good stuff indeed. Then Ginger Age got himself past Styles, then up into P14. Then he is on the charge. Then a Mushroom, we're very happy with this as well. Then looking to see if Ginger Age can get himself from last to first in this Grand Prix as well. Astrodron then back past Sickersmuck then for P12. Then these trio, I should say, are out a bit of a fight then in this first stint here. Oh dear, making sure you get some space then as well. Then he has got space. Then Kamara Racer picks up a penalty then going through the S's section. Sickersmuck then gets ahead then of the Aston Martin, of the McLaren, I should say, and keeps ahead as well. Sorry. Fantastic stuff indeed. Then oh dear, Equaz and Gordo close indeed between the two championship protagonists as well. We're going through the stadium section. Then Equaz has snuck ahead then, I think, on the harder compound of tyre, and he has got himself up into P4 now, passing Gordo then through the stadium section. Then not a conventional overtaking place, but he has done it nonetheless, and fair enough then. Good stuff indeed. Then here comes Ginner then trying to get himself past Lucas Percy then for P2, and back up into P2 of course where he started this race. Then Reflection picks up a penalty as well. Unfortunately they're going through the final couple of corners, it looks like, but there we are. Then Kiki has passed his teammate then into turn 1 as well, and Kiki up into P6 now and trying to chase down the top 5 here as well, who've all bunched up now within DRS range as we go through onto lap 11. Lewis Riley has lost out 2 places then as Sickersmuck and Astrodron have passed him down the main straight then into the first chicane. Then Lewis Riley then back down to P13 for the time being, but hopefully he can bounce back then later on in this stint, in this race of course. We'll have to wait and see how it all unfolds in terms of strategy then, in terms of spins, in terms of other pain, and in terms of racing just generally. But there we go. Then that is what the racing is about then. 60 laps remaining at the end of this one then. We have been flying through lap after lap then very quickly indeed. Then lap 11 now as we go through into the end of this first stint. Then very shortly Geordie Boxdale has passed Kamara Racing, then Kamara going a bit wide then at the exit of the second sector then, and now into sector 3. Then Geordie has got himself back in between the 2 Racing Bull drivers then through the stadium, and there we go then. Good stuff indeed. The top 8 then are all strung together then very closely indeed, I should say then, as it's very closely indeed I should say as well. Then here comes Ginner then for the race lead. Then can he get himself past the Aston Martin then down towards turn 1? Then yes he can. He's into the race lead then on the hard compound tyre. Brilliant stuff indeed. Then Lucas Percy under pressure now from Equaz as we go up into P3 then for Equaz then, and there's Gordo in the down the inside trying to challenge then for P4 as well. Then Lucas Percy then a bit powerless, I think, on those soft compound tyres to try and do anything about that at this stage of the race. Then for Lucas Percy, he's been demoted down to P6 then with Kiki going through as well. My goodness me, those soft compound tyres are definitely not working to Lucas Percy's advantage at this point of the race. Then Ginner's got a 3-second penalty then going through into the stadiums, or mini stadium section, the baseball stadium section then for the race leader now as well. Then he's now trying to get himself scampered away then from Vessia. Then he's got himself over a second away as well then through into sector 2. Looking pretty good indeed on those hard compound tyres at this stage of the race. Then Equaz also on the hard compound tyres, potentially the hardest, the better race tyre then for the Mexican Grand Prix. We'll have to wait and see then. Vessia back within DRS range just about then of the Mercedes then, who's leading the Grand Prix. Then Geordie's got himself past Lucas Percy then into the stadium section as well. Then Geordie up into P6 now, and I think we might start to see Lucas Percy think about coming into the pit lane. If it's not this lap, it might be in the next lap or so as well then, because he's oh dear, he's having a bit of a problem then into the penultimate corner. Then he can't get himself into the pit lane because Kamara Racer is there, and he has to stay out, I think then, unless he was just going to stay out anyway. But he is down to P8, unfortunately for Percy then, but struggling on then on those soft compound tyres there, really having a bit of a tough time out there on the on those soft compound tyres, I should say, at the moment then. But he's got himself back past Kamara Racer then down towards turn 1, so maybe not too bad then for Lucas Percy then. Never mind, I don't know what I'm talking about then, but so far so good then as we crack on then into lap 13. brilliant start to this race, I should say. Then it's been absolutely fantastic stuff from all the packmen. Unfortunately for Young Lights, then he's the one that's ruined it. Unfortunately, I don't think he had a setup on, so he retired in the pit lane. But everybody else has soldiered on then in this Grand Prix, then getting himself back underway. Then Mumford had a disconnect, then has got himself back in the car and back underway as well. Then Swanshanks unfortunately picking up another penalty then into the second sector as well there for the Red Bull driver. Then unfortunately for him, then heading through into sector 3 now as well. Then here comes Vessi. Then can he get himself back up into the race lead, or can Equaz challenge for the race lead down the main straight towards turn 1? We will find out now. Through the stadium section we go. Oh dear, Equaz then very late on the brakes and almost into the back then of the Aston Martin of Vessi as we go through into lap 14 very shortly now. And let's see if there's going to be any movers or shakers then down the main straight then from this top 8 then, who are very close indeed. And Lucas Percy is into the pit lane. He's calling it a day on the soft compound tyres now. He is happy then with that first stint is complete, and I'm sure he's very happy with the soft compound tyres going to be taken off that car, because the last few laps or so it was a bit of a struggle, it looked like. And now onto another set of soft compound tyres then, so fair play. If he's gone through it once before, he can go through it once again. Then Mumford into the pits then from a medium compound tyre. That's interesting stuff indeed from Mumford, maybe thinking that the hard compound tyre is the better way to go now, or maybe even the soft as well then, like Lucas Percy. So we'll have to wait and see. Right then, Percy then out in P16. Now, soft compound tyres at this stage, then in the next couple of laps or so, will be fantastically fast indeed. So he'll be setting some brilliant lap times indeed, I would imagine, as we go through then into lap 14. Then let's see where the race leaders are at. They're going through the S's section then of Sector 2, then into Sector 3. Vessia now challenging Jenner for the race lead still. Equaz in P3, remains P3, then Gordo down to P4 then, after challenging for the podium places with Jenner as well then. But the hard compound tyres have kicked in then in the last few laps or so now, and promoted Jenner back up into the top spot then, where he of course challenged for pole position then in the qualifying before this event. So very good stuff indeed. Then Kiki then looking to keep on the pressure. Then Geordie Boxtel in P6. Then Kamara Racer unfortunately has dropped off the back of this train now. P6 then upwards is all in a queue now down towards turn 1. Then here we are with Geordie then, who's the back of this queue, but he's watching very consistently, very quietly then, waiting for an opportunity, waiting for the moment then to strike. But that was not the time then. Kamara Racer then going through the first chicane, unfortunately has got a penalty for his name as well then, and seems to be having a few issues out there as well. Then he's lost a lot of time then into the first chicane there as well. Right then, Lucas Percy then on a charge now on the soft compound tyres, can see his next target then of Reflection. Then Coop has pitted 7 laps ago then for a set of medium compound tyres. Of course, Coop was also on the soft compound tyres at the start of this Grand Prix. That Lucas Percy stayed out for a lot longer than Coop did, but now they are going to be they're going to be the sort of hallmark then for the or the benchmark then for the rest of the field, and to see how quickly they can get themselves back through the field as well. Then Mumford's opted for the hard compound tyres, and I think that's what we've seen from Jenner then after a few laps. And then once they've kicked in, once they've got up to temperature, the hard compound tyres are not too shabby at all. But we might see some pressure then. We might see some pressure on the hard compound tyres then for Jenner to keep hold of that race lead now down the main straight onto lap 16. Here we go then, and Jenner then has got a 3/10 second gap then to Vessia. Then as we go onto the main straight, then DRS going to be available then for the Aston Martin. Now it's getting closer. Then can Vessia go for the move? Then can he get himself back up into the race lead as we go into towards turn 1? Then there's a gap then slightly opening. Then I think Swanshanks had an issue then in the S's section then, but Vessia then can't get himself through and stays P2 for the time being. But can he try again then in towards turn 4? Then heading down this next straight then with some more DRS then into the braking zone. Then Equaz then getting out of the slipstream then of the top 2 then, but he stays P3 for the time being as we filter through into sector 2 now as well. Then good stuff indeed. Swanshanks then, it looks like, has had an issue then in the stadium section, then trying to get himself sorted and back underway. And yes, he is. Oh no, he's coming into the pit lane now. Is Swanshanks then to call it a day on the medium compound tyres, and get that sorted. Then Reflections being passed by Lucas Percy. Then Geordie's got himself past Kiki. Hard compound tyres now for Geordie. Then could be in a much better window than the medium compound tyres as well. Then we've seen the softs drop off very early on indeed. So can the mediums hold on as well? Then at this stage of the race, I think this is where the hard compound tyres will kick in. Ginger Age has got a 3-second bonus. Then Swanshanks is in the pits for a soft compound tyre. Then he's trundling back out of the pit lane. Then I think he'll stay on the lead lap just about then as we filter through the final corner then for the race leaders then. Swanshanks is back out of the pit lane now as well, and he is ahead then of the race leaders of Jinner, Vessier, Equaz, Gordo, Geordie Boxdale, then Kiki and Kamara Racer then unfortunately 3 seconds back now as well. Then the top 6 then are storming on then in this race. Swanshanks picks up a 3-second penalty, unfortunately, on this soft compound tyres as we go through the first chicane, lap 17 now. Ginger Age is into the box, and Ginger Age has called it a day on the medium compound tyres. Then Reflection's gone through for P15. Lucas Percy now up into 14th, then on the soft compound tyres as well. Then Swanshanks is on the freshest soft compound tyres of the field and looking to get himself back underway then in this race as well. Heading through Sector 2 now is the race leader. Then the top 6, the pack of top 6 then are flying through here, and Gordo then is having a bit of an issue then through that corner. But has got himself sorted out then. Hopefully he can hold on to the DRS then and not split up the pack then. That's what the rest of the pack then, that's what Geordie Boxer and Kiki will definitely not want to happen, because they want to stay in contention for the race lead. Geordie has got himself past Gordo as well, then Gordo's had another issue, then he's been passed by Kiki as well, then Gordo off the circuit then into Sector 3, and unfortunately dropping down 2 places then in that sector as well, then in that corner as well, then I should say, heading into the stadium section now as well. I have F124 and the Sim. How can I participate? Well, you will need to be on PlayStation and you will need to join our Discord. Then the links are in the description to sign up and join us as well. Then anybody is welcome. Then this is the 100% event league. Then where we have drivers of all skill levels. Then in different cars. Then it's a realistic performance division. This one, and they are racing in the 100% league. Then the other divisions then are 50% divisions, and they are all equal cars as well. So we'll stay that's how it be it's formatted basically, but there we go. Then R2 then into the pit lane, then onto the hard compound tyre then, and looking to get himself back out and underway ahead of Ginger Age, and he will be just about. Good stuff indeed. Then R2 then, of course, was running in the points-paying positions. And then can he get himself back up there on those hard compound tyres? Astrodron has passed Lewis Riley then for the podium places, points-playing places, and up into P10 now for the McLaren. Then good stuff indeed. Then, but he's still under pressure. Then the top 6 still under the cosh between each other, I should say. Then, as they're all within 1 second as well. Then Gordo's having a bit of a problem. Then trying to keep up now at this stage. Hopefully, he can keep himself within that 1 second. Then we've seen Kamara Racer drop off the top pack. Then. Earlier on in this race then a few laps ago now, but can Gordo try and hold on as well then down the main straight? This is where it's going to get key indeed then, and we've had a problem then for Vessier. Then Vessier's lost the car then, and now Geordie's going to go through for P3. Vessier then having lost traction I think on the final corner then, has lost out from P2 down to P3 down to P4 I should say then, unfortunately for him. Link in the description, says Mushroom then. I've already said that, but there we go then. Heading into the first chicane then, and it's side by side between Vessier and Geordie Boxdale. Then through the first chicane, then Geordie has held on to the position. Then he's got himself through up into P3. Holds on to P3 on those hard compound tyres. Now the top 3 are on the hard compound. Then this is just showing that the hards, I think, are the best tyre now at this point of the Grand Prix. Vessier then down to P4. Then Kiki in P5. Then Gordo in P6. And as it stands, but of course there is going to be some changes to the order, I'm sure. Then as we go through the rest of this Grand Prix, then 50 laps remaining in the next couple of laps or so. Then Hungry Styles up into P11 now. Hard compound tyres definitely phasing in at this point very nicely indeed, and looking much better than those on the medium compound tyres as well then. So we'll have to wait and see then what the strategy is going to be like then in the drivers' minds then of the medium runners. They will be the next to maybe think about a pit stop then very soon. Astrodron has picked up a 3-second penalty, then heading into the stadium section, and here we go then on to the main straight once again. Then now I think they've all got themselves sorted in terms of the order. Then after that bit of a kerfuffle then at the final corner, then on the previous lap, then into the pits comes Gordo. Gordo calling it a day very early on then on the medium compound tyres. 19 laps then for Gordo, and into the pits, the first of the top 6 then to pit onto a set of hard compound tyres for Gordo as well. Then back underway. So that would indicate he's probably going to do a 2-stop in this race, then I'm not quite sure. But that is my guess then. That is, unless you want to put your guesses in the comment section, everyone is welcome to try and do that if you want to. But knowing the drivers, they'll just try and do the opposite anyway, because that's what they would just like to tease us. But there we go then. Gordo coming out in P13. Then he's right behind Reflection. Of course, Reflection yet to pit. Then R2 has back past his teammate then of Lewis Riley. Then up into P15 now for R2. Then, of course, pitted 2 laps ago onto the hard compound tyre. And looking good so so far then out in front, top 5 now are in this are in the fight now with Gordo pitting from P6, and he's relinquished that position, but of course now onto a fresh set of tyres as we go through the rest of this race as well. Lap 20 of 71 then. We have stormed through the first 20 laps though, to be fair. Absolutely brilliant stuff indeed. And there we go then out in front. Then we'll have a look, and then Geordie Boxtel was closing in then on the top 2 as we go through the stadium section here as well. Then Vessia, Kiki, I think are just trying to keep those medium compound tyres in check then, but Vessia is calling it a day on the medium compound tyre as well. Then his teammate pitted a lap ago for the hard compound tyres. Will there be a nice undercut then for Gordo? We'll have to wait and see as we head into the stadium section now for the other Aston Martin. Then we will see where as Kamara Racer pits as well. Then so does Justify from the medium compound tyres. So the medium runners then calling it a day now on their yellow wall tyre. Where will Vessia come out then? Where will his teammate of Gordo be as well? Then in relation then to Vessia. Sorry, my goodness me, I can't get my names right here tonight. Out of the pits comes Vessia then, but Gordo is right behind them. There he is then into the first chicane. Then he's battling with Reflection side by side, and there's a bit of contact then between Gordo and Reflection there, but Gordo has got himself through and now is trying to chase down his teammate, but the undercut not working then for the second Aston Martin on track, that is, at the moment. Lewis Riley has been passed by Ginger Rage then, goodness me, as we go through into the first chicane in P16 now with Ginger Rage. Then good stuff indeed. Then Reflection then losing out to Gordo. Then Gordo's got, of course, on much fresher tyres, but at this stage of the race, pit stop strategy is all over the place as well. Then as we got Mumford and Lewis Riley then battling into turn 4 and 5. Kamara Racer picks up a 3-second penalty then for his troubles then into sector 2. Out in front now, the battling pack then, as Kiki is also in the pit lane. The battling pack then cut down to 3 drivers now as we have more pit stop action then for those who started on the medium compound tyre. Reflection picks up a penalty then into sector 2 as well, into sector 3 I should say, as the order stays the same for the top 3. Then Sick as Muck then takes P4 as Kiki then enters the pit lane. Styles up into P5, then Astrodron is soldering on the medium compound tyres then for the McLaren, and looking to shape for a move then into P5, then passing Styles then in towards the first chicane as well. Then Gordo has got himself ahead of Kiki, then Kiki coming out of the pit lane and into P10, and behind Gordo on this occasion. Then Gordo's done 2 extra laps then on his hard compound tyres. Kiki coming out of the pit lane now. Kamara Racer then has caught up to Reflection as well here. Kamara then looking to shape for a move for that P11 position. He hasn't got DRS, I don't think, has Kamara Racer, or he's not using it, as we've got problems then for Swanshanks in sector 2. And I'm not quite sure what Swanshank's having an issue out there. Has let the lead pack go through. Of course, there's quite a gap then between the lead pack then and P4, between Sick as Muck then and the top 3 then in the podium places then. But so far they are doing a great job out there in this race as it stands, and we'll have to wait and see how it all unfolds for these drivers as well. As Kiki picks up a penalty, and unfortunately for Kiki, then that is his first penalty of the evening in P10 as we go through the stadium section. Yellow flags then again for somebody. It's Swanshanks again who's had an issue, and he's lost front wing then. The end plate they're missing on the Red Bull car, unfortunately for Swanshanks, and he needs to get himself into the pits to sort that out. But he's got a long way to go then round the lap first to try and get himself sorted, and pit then for that wing replacement as well. Then if you go through into the first chicane then for the race leaders. Down the back of the order then we've got Styles then challenging for P5. Then he's now got Lucas Percy and Vessia for company as well as we go down the main straight here, heading into the first chicane. Then is there going to be some more action as we go through? Styles takes the place then. Oh dear, Lucas Percy got into the back then of the Aston Martin. Through the first chicane we go. Kamara now ahead of Reflection as well here. Lucas Percy then and Vessia then trying to get themselves past these two who have yet to pit then. Vessia then up into P6, then passing Astrodron then, who's on the older medium compound tyres, sorry, and shouldn't be too much of a challenge, I don't think, then for those on the older hard compound tyre as well around here, so we'll have to wait and see then. But as we go through into sector 2 now, Lucas Percy and Vessia then are on a charge through this pack as well here, heading now into the slaloming S's section of sector 2 as well. Then this is where it could get very difficult indeed, especially for those who are on older tyres, trying to get those tyres to eke through the section as well. Then with those who are on the much fresher tyres, then very easily getting cruising through that section at this point of the race in that comparison as well then. Right then, here comes Kiki. Then here comes, oh dear, as Astra John then almost losing the car. Then there's contact. There's Swanshanks has retired in the pit lane, I believe. He is pit and quit as well. Then has Swanshanks, so he is done and dusted in this race. Then into the pits comes Lucas Percy. Then he is calling it a day on the soft compound tyres again now for Lucas Percy, and that is him done and dusted on his second stint then on the soft compound tyre. So potentially now we'll see him onto a different tyre or a different compounded tyre as well. Then we'll have to wait and see. Then Vessia then up into P5, then passing Styles into the first chicane. Then Kiki in the background, then passing Gordo as well, then up into P7, then Gordo down to P8, then Astrodron then in this fight still, but unfortunately on the older tyres, then yet to pit in this Grand Prix. Then Kamara Racer now up into P10, then trying to chase down those who have yet to pit as well. Then there's only 2 drivers or 3 drivers ahead of him who have pitted, so there's still quite a few to pit as well in this Grand Prix. Later on then Lucas Percy onto the medium compound tyres, then is back out in P18 unfortunately for Lucas Percy, but he has done 2 soft stints, goodness me, and now I think can try and settle into the race then on his newer tyres that can go a bit longer in their stint as well. Then we'll have to wait and see how far the medium compound tyres can go for Lucas Percy, but so far so good then, good stuff indeed. Right then, out in front we've got this trio still going. They've done 25 laps so far in this race, and they've done 25 laps at a brilliant pace indeed as well. Then they've done a very good job so far in this Grand Prix. Of course, it's the opening 25 laps then of the race then so far. There's still about 2 more thirds to go, or just under 2 more thirds to go. Sick as Muck then has called it a day. 24 laps then on the hard compound tyres for Sick as Muck then, and now onto a set of medium compound, another set of hard compound tyres, sorry for him, and away he goes. There we go then, Kiki passing Styles then for P5 now as well. Then we've got Gordo then going for a move, Gordo going for a dive down the inside, goodness me, and that was very dangerous indeed then, because he needed Styles to be very wise of what was going on there as well then, and Styles was very wise indeed, of course he is, and that is good stuff indeed. Reflection out of the out of the pit lane onto the medium compound tyres, and I'm not quite sure how long Reflection pitted, but it didn't seem that long ago in my memory, but maybe there was something else going on there I didn't see then, but unfortunately Reflection now into the pits, then down to P18, then onto a new set of medium compound tyres and back underway, and we can crack on. Right then, let's see what is going on in the rest of the order then. The closest battling is actually the top 3 here. None of them choosing to pit at this stage of the race. Then we go on to lap 26 then of 71. Then the laps ticking down, or ticking up actually, but ticking down then in terms of how many we've got left in this Grand Prix as well. Then so far so good then, as we race down towards turn 1 then into the first chicane. Then is going to be a change for the race lead here into the first chicane. Nothing doing then for Geordie Boxtel or for Equaz then, trying to take that race lead away from the Mercedes of Ginna. Then Gordo has got himself the fastest lap of the race. Then he's chasing down Kiki. He's chasing down his teammate Vessia then for that P4 position. Then they are 18 seconds away from the podium places. Then into the pits comes Coop. Then Coop has done 18 laps on the medium compound tyres and has called it a day now on those medium compound tyres as well. Kiki and Gordo then switching places. There's problems then. There's problems of Kiki and Gordo. Gordo, I'm not sure if there's contact there, but Kiki and Gordo have had an issue. Kamara Racer seems to have had an issue as well then, and goodness me, I'm not quite sure what has happened there, unless he's just been overtaken twice then. Kiki has had an issue somewhere at the exit of, into the first chicane then, and I'm not quite sure if there was contact between himself and Gordo, but either way, Kiki then has lost out 3 seconds then to the Aston Martin pair, and that was a big issue then for Kiki. He's got himself back underway quickly enough though, that hopefully there's no long-term effects then of that spin then for the Racing Bull. Then he's back underway quickly enough as well. 3 seconds, the gap now to the Aston Martins as well. Then can he get himself, got Geordie Boxtel into the pit lane now, calling it a day. He's 26 laps on the hard compound tyre, and that is him done and dusted now on the hard compound. And let's see what he's going to go on to next is the question. And it's a medium set then for the Haas. Then where will he come out then in respect to Vessia and Gordo? Then he's trundling down the pits once again then, but he can see his competitors going past him at breakneck speed down the main straight then, out in P5. Then where is Kiki? Kiki's going to come out then very close indeed to Geordie Boxtel then as we go on to the main straight now as well. Then Geordie Boxtel's getting up to speed, but Kiki's got the overspeed as we head in towards the first chicane, but Geordie Boxtel has got himself up to speed quickly enough to cover off the move. Then he's into P5. Kamara Racer then, oh dear, there's contact between Kamara Racer and Hungry Styles then. Styles off the circuit then, and he's back underway quickly enough, I think, then. But Kamara Racer then into the back then of the Red Bull car, then into turn 1. Now, like I said, it's a heavy braking zone, and if you get it wrong, then that is what happens, unfortunately. Then Kamara Racer then getting the braking point wrong, and unfortunately then collecting Styles at the same time. Then Styles back underway quickly enough, though, but unfortunately then has lost out then to R2B and to Justify as well here. Kamara Racer then I think might have some damage then on that car as well, then, especially with that shunt as well. Then he gets out of the way now of Lewis Riley and Mumford and Ginger Rage who come through, but yeah, I'm not quite sure what's happened to Kamara Racer then. Has he got some problems there? He's got himself back underway as well quickly enough then, but yeah, I'm not quite sure what happened there into turn 1. It just seemed like Kamara Racer missed his braking point then, unfortunately. Right then, Geordie then up into P5, then he's onto a fresh set of medium compound tyres. He's under pressure from Kiki then, who might be able to get himself past then with the aid of some DRS. Then Gordo's got himself past his teammate for P3, but Vessia then going to fight back into turn 1, I think, here. Yes, he goes for it down towards the first chicane. So the Aston Martin switching places then in the front of the order. Then we've got 27 laps then for the hard compound tyres as Vessia has left the session. And that is a problematic then for Vessia. Then Lucas Percy sets the fastest lap of the race. So far, so good for him as well. Then good stuff indeed then, as Astrodron has lost out to R2B and to Justify into the first chicane, as oh dear, Kamara Racer is retired in the pit lane. And that is him out of the race as well then. Unfortunately, only 28 laps in for Kamara Racer then. Another pit and quit then. So that's 3 of them done and dusted. Can we get the full 20 then is the question then. Because if 3 drivers can't be bothered then in the first 28 laps, then can we get the whole collection then into 71 laps, that is. Vessia then needs to get himself back in the car. Unfortunately then his ghost car then is losing places then to Geordie Boxell and to Kiki as they go through. Then Vessia has rejoined them, but can he get himself, I think he'll get himself back in ahead of Justify. But unfortunately he's losing time then to the rest of the field then, unfortunately, for Vessia as well here. But there we are then. That is the situation then for Vessia, as we got a racing bull car on the pit straight then. That is exactly why you don't pit and quit as well, because it just causes those sort of problems then for people who are actually trying to do their own race. But there we go. I think it's even stopped then in the it's stopped in the middle of the track there as well, hasn't it? Just typically, and Gordo's going to go through it, thankfully, which is good stuff. But Vessia then has, oh dear, he's disconnected completely then, unfortunately. He's just put demoted down to P17. So that's interesting. But not quite sure what's happened there. R2B then is up into P6 now, and heading past Justify then into that P6 position, and he's got himself the move then done and dusted now for the Alpine driver then, of course, getting himself through then. Mumford, oh dear, Mumford, Lucas Percy, Lewis Riley then all in a fight here as well. Lucas Percy on the freshest tyres of the field, and medium compound tyres to put it that way as well then. Ginger Age is in the fight here as well then. He's trying to get himself through, passing Mumford and passing Lewis Riley potentially as well in the background there. As we go into turn 4 then, they stay status quo then. Lucas Percy now into the points paying positions, or back up into the points paying positions actually, after making 2 stops already in this race, has actually been doing a pretty good job of keeping the pace up pretty high. So far, so good then. Lucas Percy now trying to catch up to Hungry Styles, who is the next target then for the Kick Sauber then. The only Kick Sauber left in this Grand Prix. Then R2B has got himself past Justify then. Yellow flags for Styles. Then Styles had an issue then in the S's section then, and he's pointing the wrong way, trying to get that car turned around. Then he's got himself back underway quickly enough then, and back underway for the Red Bull there into Sector 3 then. But oh, my goodness me, then that, let's just say that's a bit of a dangerous rejoin, because Reflection then, it was very lucky then he had time to react there. Geordie Boxell has passed Kiki for P4, sorry. Lucas Percy sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix here as well then. Good stuff from Percy, who is on a charge now on his fresh medium compound tyres. Right then. Lewis Riley then passing Mumford for that P10 position. Then he's got himself into the points paying positions for the time being, heading through into lap 30 into the first chicane. Reflection passing Styles then as well, then with some DRS then down the back straight and up into P14 now for Reflection. Coop then is trying to get himself back in the fight as well. Then Vessia, I'm not quite sure what is going on for Vessia, but he's down in P17 for some reason, but he is minus 25 seconds behind, so that would put him ahead, but not quite sure what the Delta is doing for Vessia then. Hopefully he can sort that out himself. Maybe just leave and rejoin again then for Vessia, but I'm not quite sure what is going on down there. Lap 31 then of 71, then 40 laps remain in this one, as Lucas Percy is passing Astrodron then for P8. And he has done, and up into P8 now for the Kick Sauber. Then good stuff indeed. Then Hungry Styles picking up a penalty there, unfortunately. unfortunately had that spin in Sector 2 as well. Then Lucas Percy into the stadium section has got himself up into P8, and then Hungry Stars picking up another penalty as well. And has had another issue at the same corner, it looks like, then for Styles, and unfortunately then is having a few problems, it seems, in Sector 2, but opening himself back underway. Then Justify and R2B switching places again, then Justify up into P6 again, then as well as R2B drops down to P7. They've got quite a gap now between themselves and Lucas Percy. Lewis Riley then passing Astrodron then into the first chicane, then Hungry Stars with 2 10-second penalties as well, and he is coming into the pit lane, I think, as well there. Good stuff indeed. Brilliant stuff. Lap 40, well, no, lap 40. Sorry, 40 laps to go then at the end of this one. Then so far, it's been absolutely brilliant stuff indeed for the first 31 laps of action. Then, and they have been pretty quick laps of action as well in this race. Then Lewis Riley then up into P9. Then Astrodron has been displaced. He's done 30 laps on the medium compound tyres. I'm not quite sure if Astrodron is paying for his tyres or not. Then, because he seems to be trying to eke the medium compound tyre out as long as possible then here, but he's been caught up by his teammate of Ginger Age now, and there might be some team orders then from McLaren then as the Papaya rules then come into play here into Sector 3. Well, no, they don't actually. They stay status quo then for the time being. So far, so good then. Ginger Age, I think, will be very keen to get himself past his teammate then and into P10, P11, I should say then. But unfortunately, Astrodron is blocking the way then at the moment then. And I don't think there's going to be any team rules down at McLaren, because it seems like it's still a struggle for Ginger Age to try and get himself past his teammate here, or even on the older hard compound or medium compound tyres, I should say. Then for oh dear me, there's more going past Mumford. Then that is close indeed. And oh dear, Coop has retired in the pit lane. He is out of the race as well then, so another one has given up then in the pit lane. There we go then, great stuff indeed. The Ginger Age up into the points paying positions then, as sick as muck. Astrodron and Mumford are battling away now. Ginger Age has got himself through then into the points paying positions as well. Then Styles into the pits as well then to sort out his penalties. Then Vessia is now 51 seconds behind, and I've no idea what's going on there for Vessia, but there we are. So brilliant stuff indeed. Right then, 4 drivers then out of the Grand Prix. Then 4 drivers have given up then in this Grand Prix. Then I wish I could give up at some point, but I cannot. So there we go. But I say that every time then, to be fair, because well, I have a day at work and I have to come and commentate this race as well then, just like you guys who have a day at work and have to race this race. So there we are. But there we go. Vessia has got himself up into P16 now as well, even though he's had that disconnection issue. Then he's passing Styles, who's had a very long pit stop then with all the 10-second penalties that he picked up, and has been lapped as well. Now has Styles here in this part of the race as well. Then almost at the halfway point of the Grand Prix, then Astrodron has finally pitted from the medium compound tyres, and has called it a day on the mediums. Then onto the hard compound tyres. Then Sick as Muck has passed Ginger Age into the points paying positions now, and has got himself up into P10 then. Yellow flags are fluttering for Hungry Styles then, who's given up then in this Grand Prix at this point. Then Astrodron out of the pit lane in P14 onto a fresh set of hard compound tyres. I think you might be trying to get those hard compound tyres to the end of the Grand Prix from here, which is going to be a bit of a stretch indeed, but there we are. And so far, so good then as we go through this, the rest of this race then. At the halfway point almost, but not quite then, because like I said, we've got 4 drivers who've given up then in the pit lane before the halfway point. So I'm pretty sure we'll see just about 10 drivers finish this race at this rate. So let's see let's have a bit of a prediction on who's going to give up next then, is the question. Well, we'll have to wait and see then. My bet is going to be on somebody, as Lucas Percy's got himself past Justify then, on somebody else having a spin then and giving up there. But there we are then. That is on my bookies card. Then we'll have to wait and see. Justify then has got into a battle then with Lucas Percy. Then Percy's got himself past the Ferrari then as we go through into the first chicane on lap 34. Vessia desync, said Mushroom. Yes, I think so. I'm not quite sure why or how or what, so there we go. But that is the situation then. Vessia then, I think, is... Where is he? He's ahead of the Alpine of R2B, I think, here. I think he is, but I'm not quite sure. Kiki then, yeah, so that's Kiki. Vessier should be in, I think, P6, but I'm not quite sure exactly on how or who or what, but that is the situation then as it stands then. So, yeah, we're not quite clear, but I think he's there, but we can't see him. So, well, we can see him, but you can only see him if we look at P15. Yeah, a bit of an odd one that, but unfortunately, we're going to have to take the classification as the classification. Unfortunately, unless he can get himself refreshed, then somehow or back out the session and come back in, I think that'll probably be the best way to do it. But yes, we'll have to wait and see on that one. Then out in front, then the top two have got themselves a 10-second gap now over Gordo. Gordo needs to try and bring that gap down because it looks like the top two are going to do try and do a one-stop here in this race, and if that is the case, then and Gordo will have to pit again, then we might. Oh dear, we've got all sorts of fighting going on here. We've got Kiki, we've got Gordo, we've got Geordie Boxdale into turn 4. Then Geordie holds on to P4. Then Gordo has got himself past Kiki. Then and up into P4 as well here, but like I was saying, then we might see the likes of Geordie, Gordo, Kiki, then having to try and catch and pass Gino and Equaz before they make their pit stops, because it looks like potentially the likes of Geordie. Oh dear, we've got more contact. Then we've got action then between Lewis Riley and Sick as Muck. Then up into P9 for Sick as Muck, and Lewis Riley down to P10 then. But once again, the trio then with Ginger Age has joined this fight again. Then trio for the points paying positions then is on the cards once again then with the battling pack as we go through into sector 2. What was I saying then? I was like you were saying Geordie, Gordo and Kiki then will have to try and catch up to Jinner and Equaz in the next few laps or so then before they make their pit stops, because I think Geordie, Gordo and Kiki as well will have to pit again then. So if they try and do a 2-stop, if it's faster than a 1-stop, then they need to get that gap of 9 seconds down towards the top two as quickly as possible then. But the fighting here will not help then as well to go through the first chicane, and that has opened the door now for Kiki to try and get himself past Gordo as well here. So there we are then, that is the situation in play. I think the top two then going for a 1-stop race here in this Grand Prix. Then Equaz then is currently winning the Grand Prix with Ginner's penalty as well then. So he is going to be looking in contention to extend his championship lead here in the Williams car, of course, in the current pole position in the championship as well then, with R2 Beat then in P6 currently, and with Gordo then in P4. Then it would stay status quo then for those two drivers as well then in terms of the positions in the championship as well. But of course Equaz would extend the gap then at the top of the order, but right then we'll have to wait and see how it all unfolds then in the next few laps or so then still, because we're on to lap 37 now of 71. Then we're over the halfway point I should say, and Sickers Mark has picked up a penalty unfortunately for the Ferrari driver as we go through then on to lap 37. Fantastic stuff then as we head down towards turn 1. Equaz then is not gaining enough then into turn 1 to try and line up a move then into the first chicane, and stays P2 for the time being. Then here comes Gordo on the attack once again then, and I'm not quite sure if these drivers are thinking about the fight then ahead of them, that is in terms of the top two, because they seem to be very closely fighting then for that P3 position then, but not thinking of the overall game then, the overall strategy then for the whole race as we go through onto lap 37. Then there's still quite a long way to go in this race, then 30 laps or 33 laps or so, 34 laps to go or whatever it is. Trying to do the maths then, that's that, and then good stuff indeed, but there we are. Right then, R2 Beat needs to get himself on the charge as well here. R2 Beat could be in contention as well for some more points on the cards. We'll have to wait and see though. But unfortunately for him, then we're not quite sure exactly where he is, because well, not R2 Beat. I'm not quite sure where Vessier actually is. Where Vessier is at the moment is in a bit of no man's land down in P15. So Vessier needs to get himself back into the car, back into the session, I should say, or refresh his. Refresh, whatever it is, get out of the session and back in the session. He's got a 3-second penalty then for his troubles, but I'm not quite sure exactly if that's correct or not, but nonetheless we'll crack on. So there we are. Right now, lap 38 then of 71 then. We are ticking through these laps at breakneck speed, to be fair. 7 seconds the gap then between the top two and Geordie Boxtel. Then, of course, Geordie under a bit of pressure now from those on the hard compound tyres, then right behind him, Gordo and Kiki. But, of course, if these three work together, then they can get themselves potentially even closer then and potentially back in contention then for the race lead and the race win here in Mexico, I should say then, because, of course, they've got to get themselves a 7-second gap, then bring that 7-second gap then down to the top two as quickly as possible then to make the benefit then of a 2-stop compared to a 1-stop. And at the moment then the 1-stop is actually winning out in this in terms of this strategy battle as well at this moment. Of course, that could change, and it probably will. So there we are. So now the 6 seconds the gap then. I think Geordie then has spotted what is going on out there and is trying to bring that gap down quickly as well now, and going through into the stadium section, then locking up then on the inside left, then trying to go through the stadium section as quickly as possible then. But the lockups then are not going to be helping his tyre wear, unfortunately. Then Pens says Mushroom. Then we'll have a look at the penalties then, shall we? Why not then? 6 seconds then for Jenner, then currently in the race lead, but he's going to be demoted down the order then, unfortunately, with his penalty situation. And Sickers Muck has got himself past his teammate then into the stadium section, and he's got 9 seconds of penalties, unfortunately, for Sickers Muck. And there we are then. 9 seconds for Hungry Styles, then 6 for Astrodron, 6 for Reflection, 6 for Jinner as well, then 3 for Vessia, then 3 for who we got? 3 for Ginger Rage, then 3 for Justify, 3 for R2 Beat and Kiki, and that is the penalty situations then. Lewis Riley is passing Justify, then Justify's lost out to Ginger Rage as well, then in towards turn 1. Ginger Rage then up into P10 as it stands. Then these 4 now with Sickers Muck involved then are fighting for the points paying positions here, the edge of the points paying positions as well. Then it's going to get close indeed. Right then, Geordie Boxtel now 5 seconds away. Then he's bringing that gap down quicker and quicker now as laps go by, I should say. Then almost a second a lap, then, or over a second a lap in some cases as well here. He's on a charge now, is Geordie. Good stuff indeed then, and trying to bring that gap down then to the top two then to try and get himself into a bit of a fight then, and bringing Gordo and Kiki along with him as well here. Thank you, says Mushroom. Well, there we go then. No problem at all. All you need to do is ask nicely in the comment section, and I will probably try and do it. So there we go then, unless I've completely forgotten how to do it, but that is also a case then that probably will happen then in the near future with my dementia. But there we go then, heading into the first chicane then. These are the 2 race leaders onto lap 40 now of 71 then. We have flown through 40 laps of this Grand Prix. It's been absolutely brilliant stuff indeed, and we go through now into the first chicane then for the trio then that are chasing down the 2 race leaders, and Kiki then trying to get himself alongside. Then the Aston Martin has lost the traction there as Kiki then is lost out to he's lost out then to the attack, then to the DRS, then of Gordo, and unfortunately that could be very costly indeed for Kiki then as we go through then into the sector 2 part of the lap as well now. 5 seconds separates the top 2 from the from 3rd place and 4th place as well now, going through into sector 2, sorry. This is where potentially the better tyre wear for Geordie and for Gordo and for Kiki then will be much more appreciative then for the tyres compared to these 2 here then heading into sector 3. And heading now into the stadium section then on the end of lap 40, then on to 41, then 30 laps to go in this race. Will we see these 2 drivers then peel into the pit lane very soon then to put on a set of medium compound tyres? And Jinner is into the pit lane, as is Equaz then from the race lead, and they have called it a day on their hard compound tyres at the end of lap 40. Geordie takes the Grand Prix lead, then Gordo through into P2, then Kiki up into P3. Brilliant stuff indeed as well then for these 2. Then Equaz, of course, is further down the garage then in terms of the pit lane order. Yellow flags for a Haas then. Mumford's had an issue in sector 2 then. Can he get himself into virtual safety car? A virtual safety car is brilliant stuff indeed for Jinner then, and for Equaz as well. Then R2 Beat up into P5, passing one of them. Can he pass Jinner is the question. Then Lucas Percy up into P6 now. Will there be some more pit stop action? Then Lewis Riley's into the pit lane now as well. Then Jinner then up into out in P4 then on the fresh medium compound tyres. He's going to have to do 30 laps then on the medium compound tyres to the end of this Grand Prix. Then as is Lewis Riley, then as is Equaz as well here. Reflection up into P11 now. Right then, Mumford then has had a bit of an issue somewhere. He's got himself into the pit now. Lewis Riley coming out then on a medium compound tyre in P12. Then Mumford then will get himself off those hard compound tyres. Will Astrodron have time to get himself into the pits then and use the VSC to his advantage then for another stop? Then he doesn't need to because he's on 7-lap old hard compound tyres. So he carries on then, does Astrodron. But there we go then. Unfortunately, Vessia is somewhere else on the track. We're not quite sure where. Hungry Styles, I think, is a bit too far back then as we go through into Sector 3. Then this trio here, can this trio use the VSC to their advantage? Then no, they can't then because it's been DRS re-enabled. Now we're back underway. Then R2B's been passed by Lucas Percy, and we go through into Sector 3 now. Right, then Lucas Percy trying to get himself into contention then with Jinner. Jinner is under pressure now from the kick sour as we go through. Then Jinner is also on the fresher medium compound tyres, sorry, after making that stop. Then just as the VSC came out, then yellow flags for a Red Bull. Then somewhere having another issue then is one of the Red Bulls. Then it's not Swanshanks, he's out of the race then, so it must be Styles then, unfortunately, then down the main straight. Then here we go, then down in the background we've got Equaz and R2B battling away. Then here comes Lucas Percy into the first chicane then, and he has got the move, has he? No, Jinner then on the brakes later as well on the fresher tyres as contact between Lucas Percy and Jinner as well then as we go through into the first chicane then, and I'm not quite sure if there's going to be any damage then for the kick saber as we go through down towards turn 4 next as we cover off the inside. Then no, he's not got the covering off the inside because down the inside goes Lucas Percy. Then he's got the move, he's got the position. Then can Jinner get the switch back? Not quite. There's more contact as we head into the mini baseball section as well now, but Lucas Percy has taken P4 away from the Mercedes driver. Fantastic stuff indeed. Then Equaz has got himself past R2B as well in that battle. We didn't quite see it, but in the background as we go through then into the slaloming S's section then of Sector 2 as well now, flying through here as well. Then goes here comes Jinner. Then Jinner on the attack now into the stadium section. He's got the move then, has he? Oh, he's gone deep though, and Lucas Percy could try and go for the switch back here into the actual stadium section, I should say. Not so much a baseball stadium this one, but now onto the back onto the main straight we go once again onto lap 44 then of 71. Then goodness me, the laps are definitely flying through as we go into the second or the final stint then, or final third then of this Grand Prix very soon. Down the main straight here comes Lucas Percy, but he's being challenged now by Equaz as we go through in towards turn 1. Then Equaz is through up into P5, then taking that place away then from Lucas Percy. I think that's just the tyre life that they've got in terms of the compared to the kick Sauber there, that's just impressively got themselves powering through then for the Mercedes and the Williams car as well, heading in towards Sector 2. And now the top two previously challenging each other once again then, lying astern then as well as Lucas Percy then trying to hold on to the back of them as well. Then R2B could be dragged along a bit there with some DRS then for this quartet now as well. Then of course the top two of the quartet then were leading the Grand Prix before, so we'll have to wait and see then as we've got more yellow flags for somebody as well then having an issue out there. R2B then is in P7 then currently trying to hold on to Lucas Percy, then who's trying to hold on to Equaz, who's trying to hold on to Jinner as we go through then into lap 44 momentarily. Then Ginger Rage's got a 3-second break. Then here comes Geordie Boxdale. He's going very wide through the final corner there, and that could open the door then for Gordo to try and mount a charge then in towards turn 1 then with some DRS as well then for the Aston Martin driver. Then here he goes then for the race lead. Then he's got the race lead. Then he's past Geordie Boxdale up into P1 for the Aston Martin. Good stuff indeed. And so far so good then as we go through into lap 44. Then it's been like I said, been action all over the field then as R2B and Lucas Percy now are switching places then into turn 1. Then R2B up into P6 then, of course reclaiming P6. Then Lucas Percy then was in the fight for that position as well then, but they have now lost out to the DRS then of the top of the two ahead of him, I should say, then of Equaz and Jinner, I should say. Goodness me, there's too many of them, but heading through into Sector 2 now as well. And like I was saying then, these two are formerly the race leaders, and the three ahead of them now might start to worry about what's coming up in their wing mirrors here, because they are, of course, will be looking to maybe try and do another stop then in this race. I don't think they'll be able to get to the end of the Grand Prix from this point of the Grand Prix, especially with their tyre wear at this stage then, so they might have to be starting to think about when they're going to be next coming into the box then to sort out a new set of tyres. But at the moment they are struggling on then, or maybe not struggling on, but they are soldering on out there at the moment at this stage of the race on to lap 45 then of 71. My goodness me. It has been absolutely brilliant so far in this race. I probably jinxed it now, but I have to say they've done a fantastic job, those who've managed to crack on then in the Grand Prix. Into turn one, then Geordie then cannot fight for that P1 position, and I think Geordie's tyres then might start to be a bit worse for wear in the next corner or two. Lucas Percy back past R2B as these two resume their fight then for that P6 position. Then I think that might rage on for a few more laps here, but Equaz and Ginner then are closing in then to the top three. 9 seconds the gap then between Ginner and the podium places now as we go through. Then there is blue flags for Vessier's car, so I think Vessier is actually a lap down, or not a lap down, or almost a lap down I should say, yeah, I'm not quite sure what is going on there, but nonetheless, that is what is going on there. So there we go. Unfortunately, for Vessier, then he's not in the same session as us, which is the real problem. But hopefully, if he leaves and rejoins them, that might reset then for the transponders and whatnot. But yeah, fingers crossed that is just the issue that it is then. But there we go. Then into the final couple of corners now. Geordie Boxtel all over the back then of Gordo for that race lead here. Here he comes then onto the back straight, onto the main straight, I should say. Then goodness me, and it's getting close indeed. Then already before the DRS is open, then that Haas is almost in the diffuser of the Aston Martin. There we go. Then DRS is open then for the Haas car as we head down the main straight here and takes the lead of the Grand Prix into the first chicane. Good stuff indeed. 25 laps remaining at the end of this one. Then we have flown through the first 46 laps. It's been absolutely brilliant stuff indeed then, and I've been very much enjoying then the action on track then for every position then so far in this race. I think we've seen a battle for every position so far in this race as well then, which has been brilliant. But so far so good then as we go through into the first chicane then for R2B and Lucas Percy then staying status quo in that respect as well. Then Lewis Riley then passing Reflection then on the medium compound tyres. There's a lot, 16 lap fresher tyres for Lewis Riley than there is for Reflection, unfortunately. So that is the difference there in terms of tyre wear. That is going to be very beneficial, especially through the corners of Sector 2. Out in front then, it looks like Gordo's had a problem somewhere because he's struggling to keep up with the Haas of Geordie Boxtel into Sector 3, but that DRS I think has helped him a bit there. Geeky unfortunately is 2 seconds back now at this stage of the race, and unfortunately Geeky dropping back down the field at this point is going to be a bit problematic, I think, then, as we go through then onto lap 70 onto lap 47, and not quite on lap 70 just yet then, but Ginger Ray's got another 3 second penalty unfortunately for Ginger Ray. He's racking up the penalties out there as we go through into the final third then of this race very soon. Gordo has taken the lead then into the first chicane, then Gordo back up into the race lead, then into the pits comes Percy, calling it a day. Then 24 laps now on the medium compound tyres have been completed then for the kick Sauber driver. Then what tyre is he going to go on to next is the question. Then Equaz then is trying to challenge Ginner still for that P4 position. Then they're closing in then on the top three. Medium compound tyres back on the kick Sauber then for Lucas Percy. Then Lewis Riley passing Justify, who is also into the pits for a hard compound tyre. Lucas Percy coming out of the pit lane now into P10 and back underway. Then it might be close with Reflection though on the exit then in towards turn 1. I think he's got it covered off then, has Percy then for that P10 position. Justify then hard compound tyres going on the Ferrari then and back out in P12. He is ahead of Mumford at the moment then, so he's got himself that P12 position then all to his own then as it stands. Then quite a gap then between the drivers ahead and behind him as well, for the time being that is, but we go through as it is now. Now into the out of the stadium section again then, sorry, on to lap 48 then. Every time I see these drivers, they're going on to the next lap. It seems like they're flying around this circuit then brilliantly as we go on to the main straight once again. Then Geordie then has that rear wing open then with the extra pace then for the DRS, then heading down towards turn 1. Ginger Ray just passed Sick as Muck then for that P7 position, but I think the penalties then racking up for both those two drivers might come back to bite them later on in this Grand Prix at the checkered flag. Heading through the first chicane then goes Geordie Boxtel, then putting the pressure on, then going through there brilliantly indeed. Then he's has done a fantastic job, sorry, getting himself through that chicane and putting the challenge then to Gordo then into turn 4 then, but he stays behind into sector 3 then, sorry, sector 2 for the time being that is, and thinks better of it then into making a dive then into that stadium section as well. Lucas Percy then passes Lewis Riley then down the main straight as well, then up into P9. That is Percy then already getting the moves done then on his first lap then on the medium compound tyres, then up into P9. Now he's 1.2 seconds away from Sick as Muck then, who's on much older hard compound tyres. There he is then into the first chicane. He's all over the back then of the Ferrari already then as we go into the first chicane then. I'm not quite sure if Sick as Muck's got some sort of issue there, but he's let Lucas Percy go by, and unfortunately for Sicker's Muck, that seems to be struggling then on the hard compound tyres as it stands. But nonetheless, then he is underway. He's still challenging on. Then is Sicker's Muck then, which is good stuff to see. Right, 4 seconds now for Percy then to try and catch up to this man here of Ginger Age, who is storming on into the distance as well. Then 9 seconds for Ginger Age. More movements then as Kiki. No, it's Geordie in the pit lane then. So we'll come back to that. And Ginger Age has got some penalties then, but we'll speak about that later. Geordie Boxtel into the pits now. It's medium compound tyres for the Haas, and back underway he goes then. Where will he come out then in respect to his rivals then? It will be ahead of Ginger Rage, I believe, but it will be behind R2 Beat then, who has done 31 laps now on his hard compound tyres. That is a pretty good stuff indeed then for R2 Beat then. 4 seconds now is the gap then between P6 and P5. Then of course Geordie now onto a fresh set of medium compound tyres and underway I think to the end of the Grand Prix. As R2 Beat's had an issue then. R2 Beat's had a spin at the first chicane, then he's back underway, but unfortunately that has been very costly indeed for the Alpine driver. He's held on to P6 for the time being, but he's lost out to Geordie Boxtel. Then into the pits comes Reflection as well. Then medium compound tyres going on the Mercedes then, and back out of the pit lane he goes. But R2 Beat then with that spin, I think might be having to think about a pit stop in the next few corners or so. Then coming through towards the final section of the lap now, because I think those tyres might be a bit too cooked now at this stage. The same for Ginger Ages, to be fair, because they've done 32 laps. Then has Ginger Age. And my goodness me, penalties starting to rack up as well then for Mumford as well. Then Mumford another 3 seconds then into sector 3. But there we go then. Here comes Lucas Percy then. Lucas Percy then is flying. And here he goes then into sector 3. Then he's passing Ginger Age then for that P7 position. And of course on the fresh medium compound tyres then it was not much of a contest there I don't think. But of course Ginger Age has done almost 33 laps now on his hard compound tyres compared to Lucas Percy, who's done 3 laps on his medium. So there's about 30 laps difference in terms of tyre wear. Ginger Age is staying out though. He is soldering through and back onto the main straight then, P8 for the time being now. Right then, out in front then, Equaz still trying to chase up to Ginner then, and they are chasing up to the top 2 now. Of course, Geordie has pitted then. He's 13 seconds behind. Sicker's Muck has also pitted as well then for the Ferrari driver. Into the pits he goes then, and a new set of medium compound tyres I would imagine going on the car then. Yes, it is then, and back underway. I think he might lose out to Reflection then. We're very close on the exit then with Astra John as well then, who's on 17 lap old hard compound tyres. But there we are. Right then, out of the pit lane then, and Astrodron then has got the overspeed then down the pit straight then, and he's got himself up into P13. Sicker's Muck now onto fresh medium compound tyres is back underway. Then Hungry Styles has stopped at the side of the track then to let somebody through. I think it's a Mercedes then of Ginner now, who's been put under pressure once again then from Equaz as we go down the main straight onto lap 51. Then 20 laps remain at the end of this one. It's been fantastic so far. I keep saying it, but it is true. But we go down as Kiki's lost out then to Gordo, and oh dear, I'm not quite sure what's happened then to Kiki then, if he's had some sort of issues then once again then, but he's got himself back underway then and still challenging for that P2 position then, and still podium place on the cards then for Kiki. Lucas Percy sets the fastest lap of the race then. He's chasing down R2 Beat, who's his next target then. R2 Beat is back up into P6. Oh no, it was Geordie then and R2 Beat that switched places, wasn't it? Of course, I thought R2 Beat had that spin, but it was down behind Lucas Percy, but he's not. It's other way around then, sorry for that one. Now, will we see some more pit stops then for the likes of R2 Beat, the likes of Ginger Age, the likes of Gordo and Kiki, more importantly as well, then out in P1 and P2 respectively at the moment, but they will be under a bit of pressure I think then in the next few laps though, compared to, well, from Ginner and from Equaz. Then the interesting thing is though that of course Ginner and Equaz have done only a 1 stop in this race, and potentially will only try and do a 1 stop in this race by starting on the hard compound tyres. They did about 40 laps then on the hard compound tyre, and now we'll be looking to do about 30 laps then on the medium compound tyre, but will they be able to get to the end on those tyres is another question. Of course, the tyres, what is it? The fuel loads get lighter as we go through the race. Then, of course, they start on a lot heavier fuel than in 100% race than they do normally as well. Then in 50% racing as well. But they have got to manage the fuel loads. The car will handle a bit differently, especially as it will feel a lot lighter as well, especially towards the end of the Grand Prix. But that is the situation of 100% racing. To be fair, R2 Beat then into the pit lane. as is Ginger Age then, so both of them calling it a day then on their very old hard compound tyres, and that is a very good call indeed. I think then onto a set of medium compound tyres then for the Alpine, and a set of medium compound tyres for the McLaren as well. Then away they go and back out, and I think that's going to be their final stops then of the Grand Prix then as well then for this stage. R2B then coming out of the pit lane. Where will he be in respect to Justify? And Justify is going to be close then with R2B then. Where is he? There he is then as he goes out of the pit lane. Then he is behind the Ferrari. Mumford ahead of Ginger Age, sorry, as we come out of the pit lane in P11 for Ginger Age. So far, so good. Right, then they'll be soldiering on to the end. Then, to be fair, for Gina and Equaz, their tyres are definitely not going to feel very good at the end of this Grand Prix if they're going to do one stop in this Grand Prix as well. Then R2B has got himself passed and up into P8 now, passing Justify here in this race. Now he can try and race on as well. Then, because Justify's on the hard compound tyre, will be looking to get himself to the end of the Grand Prix on that set of hard compound tyres as well. Then, so it's not all done and dusted just yet. Then with Justify, and he could get himself some points on the board here tonight as well. Then. Serious Mushroom said Ginger's got a nosebleed. Well, he was up in I think P6 or P6 or P7 at one point, but of course has just pitted then for a fresh set of medium compound tyres. Could get himself back up into the points paying positions very soon. We'll have to wait and see then if he can do them. But here we go then. Here is the challenge then. Gordo and Kiki then. Of course we saw Kiki then almost 2 seconds behind Gordo at one point only a few laps ago. Then I'm not quite sure if I keep missing it, but it seems like that one of them has having an issue one after the other. Then Astrodron has picked up a penalty there. 1.6 seconds behind the top two then is this Mercedes here of Ginner. Then as we go through the slaloming S's section, there you can see in the foreground the top two. Then this is the P3 man then of Ginner heading through into sector 3 now. There you can see his challenges, then he can see his targets then as well as we go through into the stadium section here on lap 53, and he's going to be outside of DRS range just about then, unfortunately, for the Mercedes driver then, but he's not going to be too far away then on the next lap, I don't think, and if they stay out, that is, but they will be looking, I think, to stay out then potentially then to the end of the Grand Prix as well here. Potentially we saw Geordie Boxdale pit then for the medium compound tyres. Will the top two, Kiki and Gorda, then think about pitting for the medium compound tyre then and firing their tyres to the end of the Grand Prix? They'll be very quick indeed in the final stint, but as Gorda then goes for the lead then into the first chicane, then he gets the place then ahead of Kiki. And there we are then. Roles reversed then in the top of the order then, but Kiki coming back at him down towards turn 4. In the background, we've got 1.2 seconds the gap then between Ginner and Equaz now trying to catch up to the top two here. Vessier's got a 3-second penalty, but we're not quite sure where Vessier actually is in this race then, so unfortunately we're going to have to classify him in P15, which is, yeah, unfortunate, because I don't think he's, I don't know where he is, to be honest, but hopefully he can get himself, well, either, like I said, get himself, get his internet sorted would be good, so that he can get himself back in this race. But there we are then in the battle. Then Geordie Boxdale is under 10 seconds away then from the top 4. Then Lucas Percy another 9 seconds back then on the medium compound tyres, looking to go to the end of the Grand Prix from there. I would imagine R2B and Justify will switch places again. Then R2B is in a bit of a fight then with the Ferrari then as we go through into lap 54 then, sorry, into the first chicane, then in towards sector 2, then into turn 4. Ginger Age then into the top 10 as well, then passing Mumford then on the medium compound tyres. Then can he get himself further up into the points paying positions here as well then for the McLaren driver? Then we'll find out that later on in this race. And in the front of the order then we've got Kiki going for the race lead then into turn 1 on lap 55 then, and Ginner then and Equaz have caught up to this fight. Now they're in the fight now as well then for the top of the order. They were going to have to wait their turn and get themselves through the order then as cleanly as possible, of course, as oh dear, Gordo and Ginner then are trying to go for a fight then into turn 4, and Gordo has got the inside for the next turn as well. Then he's held on to the position as well then ahead of the Mercedes then for the time being, that is, but I think it's only for the time being then, because of course the tyre life, oh dear, as Ginner's gone very wide then, the tyre life then is definitely within the favour of the Mercedes driver of Ginner then and the Williams of Equaz as we go through into sector 2, and the battling then has cost Gordo a bit of time then to Kiki as well then as we go through into sector 2 as well then. Good stuff indeed then. RTB up into P8 then back up into P8, passing Justify here. He needs to try and soldier on and catch up to his teammate rather than worrying about the Ferrari then, but I don't think Justify is keen on letting him go at this point of the race. Sick as Muck then passing Astrodron then. Sick as Muck on the medium compound tyres, and unfortunately unfortunately. Oh, yes, he has got DRS, actually. I thought he didn't have DRS for some reason. But yes, he has got DRS then to pass the McLaren and get himself further away as we go down the main straight there. Ginner then is onto the main straight as well, then behind the McLaren and the Ferrari then. But now into behind an Aston Martin and behind a Racing Bull then. But it's going to be side by side into the first chicane, then almost into the back of the Racing Bull of Kiki then in the race leader. But Ginner then gets himself up into P2 for now, that is. But we'll wait and see then if that's going to change. But 15 laps remaining at the end of this one. And we go into turn 4, then round the outside goes Equaz then, who he's got the inside then for turn 4, then into turn 5, then he's got the inside for turn 5, and passes Gordo as well. Then, of course, he's on the fresher tyres, same life of tyre then as Ginner. Then R2 beats sets the fastest lap of the race then. Brilliant stuff indeed then. He is going to get himself some great guns now to catch up to his teammate then and potentially catch anyone who has any further mistakes or further issues up the order then. Reflection. Oh dear, what's happened there? Sick as Muck and Astra John have had an issue, it seems then, or did they just go off the circuit then as we go through into the stadium section now? And I'm not quite sure what happened there between the two of them then as we go through then onto the next lap then. Was there some I'm not quite sure what was happening, to be fair then, but nonetheless, we'll crack on then. Reflection and Mumford, have switched places then. Mumford then has been passed by the Mercedes driver as we go down towards the first turn. Then here comes Sick as Muck and Astra John resuming their fight, it looks like, then into the first chicane. And we go through then side by side. There's contact when as Astra John is turned into the Ferrari. It looks like then into turn 2. Then the Ferrari then has gone through. But unfortunately, that is not how it works. Unfortunately, you can't turn in when there's a car already there. Kiki then is under a bit of pressure now. He's got Equaz then to fight with as well then, but he's been passed by Ginner. Then Ginner has taken the race lead. Then down the inside goes Equaz. Equaz has gone into the side of Ginner then as we go through turn 4. My goodness me, and Kiki's trying to get his nose back in there as well then, but he's down to P3 then is the Racing Bull driver then for the time being. My goodness me. Right then, Sick as Muck then has finished off the battle, I think, hopefully with Astrodron then. They've calmed themselves down now. Sick as Muck picked up a penalty then, sorry for his troubles. Right then, Reflection, Ginger Age and Mumford then are going to be challenging for the final points paying position, it looks like, because they've got a 6-second gap then to justify. And R2 Beat then is trying to shake off the Ferrari then and trying to catch up to the order ahead of him, but unfortunately it is not working out that way at this stage of the race then. We go through then on to lap 58 then very soon. And now Equaz is going to challenge for the race lead, I think, here down this main straight. Then he's harvesting energy then in the foreground. We've got the Ferrari and the McLaren again in the fight. I'm not quite sure what is going on there. As we go into turn 1 once again then, and oh dear, Astrodron then trying to almost losing the car then. It seems like that car's trying to step out then into the first turn on the exit there as well then. Heading through the first chicane then, Kiki then all over the back. Then he's made a move then. He's gone past, you know, then into turn 3 somehow. And now down towards turn 4 then. Has he got the race lead back? Can he cover off the Mercedes? Yes, he can. Then he's up into P1 once again then for Kiki. Brilliant stuff indeed then. And like I said, it's going to be a bit of a challenge then to try and fight off the well, to be fair, we've seen the medium compound tyres start to drop off around lap 18 to lap 20 on their stints as well then. So potentially, actually, it could be close, you know. It could be quite close in terms of the tyre wear in the next lap or so then. It might be a 4-way fight then. It might actually make that a 5-way fight because Geordie Boxdale is on a fresh set of medium compound tyres, is definitely going to the end of the Grand Prix from here and is going to be firing on all cylinders then to try and get himself up into the race lead in the next few laps or so. Then it won't take too long, I don't think, for Geordie to catch up then on his fresher medium compound tyres. So it is not all done and dusted just yet then. Lucas Persick could be in with a shout as well then of some more points, especially with the penalties then for Kiki and for Ginner as well then. Astrodron and Sick as Muck then carrying on their fight then in towards turn 1 then. Yellow flags then for a Red Bull of Hungry Styles, I think then, who's having an issue. Then into turn 1 then. Equaz is past Kiki, then up into P2, then Kiki dropping down from P1 down to P3. Unfortunately then on that lap as well. Then now on to lap 59 of 71, then 12 laps remaining at the end of this one. It is going to get very close indeed, very spicy indeed then towards the end of this Grand Prix, I think. But the hard compound tyres, I think, are struggling now at this stage, and I think they're going to have to hope that the medium compound tyres start to struggle then in the next lap or two to be able to hold on to contention then with the Mercedes of Ginner and the Equaz of Williams. I mean, the Williams of Equaz, I should say. My goodness me. But in the background there, you can see the Haas coming through into Sector 2 now as well. Then this is Geordie. Then he's now 3.4 seconds behind, and the gap was over 4 seconds then on the previous lap at this point. Then he's bringing that gap down. It's now under 3 seconds for Geordie Boxtel. Then Geordie is on a mission here as we go into Sector 3, then into the stadium section once again then, and that gap is coming down pretty substantially then for good Geordie, and I think he might be looking to get himself at least, well, he will be able to get himself on the podium as it stands with the penalty situation, but yes, it is going to get very spicy indeed. Then lap 60 of 71, then 12 seconds for Ginger Age, then 9 seconds for Reflection. Then unfortunately that would demote Ginger Age out of the points paying positions, and Reflection would gain that position. Mumford then has pitted for a new set of tyres, and he's got 3 seconds, and Sick as Muck's got 12. Astrodron's got 9, and as has Vessia. Hungry Styles has got 12 then as well. Then out in front, then Ginner has got 6 seconds. That would demote him off the podium places as it stands, and I think, yes, it would do actually. Yes, it would do, and that would be problematic then, as actually probably demoting down to P5 now, as Geordie Boxtel is really catching up then through into Sector 2. He lost out, of course, on the main straight. Then that's where the DRS is going to be most powerful, of course, and very effective. But now through Sector 2, then that gap is going to be under 2 seconds, and as we exit into Sector 3, I would imagine then it's already under 2 seconds as we enter Sector 2, so never mind, ignore me, as I don't know what I'm talking about then. But Geordie then is on a charge. Look at him go. Gordo has dropped off the back then of the top 3 then, unfortunately with Gordo. Then he's got DRS still, but unfortunately over a second now into the stadium section here. And there we are then. So it could get very spicy indeed now for Geordie. Then Geordie trying to get himself into contention for a podium. Then could get himself in contention for a race win here in the Haas. Then we'll have to wait and see then. I'm not sure if he's got DRS. And though he was close enough in the detection point then onto the main straight then for the Haas then on this lap then. But as we go through lap 61 then, I'm sure he will get himself into the DRS window then of the Aston Martin of Gordo. Then we'll switch back to the tyre situation. Sorry then, as we can see what the tyre life is saying then for all these drivers here who are still running very well in Mexico here tonight. Then 10 laps remaining at the end of this one. Then we have flown through 61 laps of absolute brilliant action then here in Mexico City tonight. Then it's been fantastic as we go through now into Sector 2. And Gordo then now under pressure from Geordie Boxtel. Justifies picked up a penalty as well there. Into the pits comes Vessia then. So unfortunately for Vessia then, he is calling it a day now on his well, I'm not quite sure what he's doing, to be honest, because we don't know where he is. But there we go then. Gordo now under pressure from Geordie Boxtel. Can Geordie pass Gordo quickly to try and mount a challenge then for the podium places? Then here he comes then through into Sector 3 then with some DRS as well. Then he has got himself past then and up into P4 and has taken the place away then from the Aston Martin of Gordo. Then brilliant stuff indeed. Then now he's got another challenge to try and get that gap down to the podium places, and he's currently on the podium places as it stands already with his with the penalty situation for Jinna and for Kiki, but he wants to get himself there on merit. Then Gordo then is trying to hold on, trying to catch up, trying to keep up, I should say, with Geordie then, and of course bring himself back in contention as well then with the top 3 if there's any issues there as well. There is a Ferrari then who is well, he's been lapped then by is Sick as Muck then, and the McLaren of Astra John then, both of them fighting, unfortunately, then are costing the race leaders here, and they need to get themselves out of the way then of these two as well. Then I'm not quite sure if they figured that out yet, but they haven't then, unfortunately, it looks like. So there we go then. Airquaz then has gone through, passing Sick as Muck then, and we've now got a racing ball of Kiki trying to get himself through as well, which is this is just going to cause a bit more problems then for the race leaders, as your blue flags are fluttering for a reason then, guys, as into Sector 2 we go then for Equaz. Then unfortunately for Equaz, he's not able to get himself past the McLaren, I don't think there, but nonetheless he's having a few issues then, unfortunately for Equaz then. Good news for Geordie Boxtel then. Can he catch up then at this point of the race then into Sector 2? Not quite then, doesn't look like. Then they still got a 2-second gap then to the top 3 as we go into the stadium section now as well here. So he's not been able to use the pace then that he had in the previous couple of laps or so. Then potentially those tyres starting to wear out now for Geordie Boxtel as we head into lap 62 now. 63, sorry, goodness me, we're flying through. And there we go then, that is the situation out there as well then. I'm not quite sure why the lapped cars are trying to get involved here. Unfortunately, they will be in a bit of trouble then with the stewards if the drivers then do choose to report them, because it is, I know it's, they put the ghost cars on there for a reason, but it is a bit unsightly for some of the drivers then who are trying to get themselves through the field then and keep themselves within a fighting pack then. But that is the situation that we've got then with people then who are choosing to just get in the way. Yeah, not much I can do about it, unfortunately, at this stage of the race. So there we are then. So yeah, unless I had the actual steward capabilities, which would be very nice indeed. I think that might be very horrible actually indeed for some drivers. There we go then. Now we've got themselves sorted out. I think Geordie Boxdale is still 2 seconds behind though. So unfortunately for Geordie, then it's stalled then in his charge then for Geordie then to try and get himself into the podium places then on merit. That is, of course, he will be there on merit as well with the penalty situation, but he has stalled out unfortunately then, in terms of trying to get himself there on track. Then Mumford's got a 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit then, and pit and quit then. I'm not quite sure why you would pit and quit when with only 8 laps to go then of a 70 lap race that you've completed already. 64 laps or 63 laps in already as well then. So there we go. That is very odd to me, but never mind. Right then, as we crack on then here in the race lead, we've got we've got 3 really, because Geordie then has not been able to catch up then, and now is back under pressure then from Gordo. I think here is actually Geordie then looking to maybe going backwards actually instead of looking forwards at this point now. It seems like it's faltered, and the pace has faltered then for Geordie. Not quite sure what's happened there. He's having some issues then, as we got Mumford's car, the Haas, as still getting in the way on track as well, which is fantastic, as Astrodron and Sickers Muck are still battling away then for some sort of reason. But they've just done a great job of holding up the race leaders then for a lap or two, but now have got themselves out of the way, I think, there, so sort themselves out. Vessia then is also in the pits then, and I'm not quite sure if Vessia is going to pit and quit as well, or where he is if he even is in the pits, because his transponder has been playing up all Grand Prix. But there we are then. Right then, so Kiki is having a bit of trouble with a ghost car there, and that is Astra John then, who's had another issue then. Kiki then has gone for a spin then, and Geordie is now into the podium places then. Unfortunately for Kiki, then he's dropped down to P5. Now Lucas Percy then will be putting the pressure on then into the next few corners as well then. Out in front then, Equaz, as we've got more yellow flags. It's for an Aston Martin then, I think, of Vessia then, who has done the right thing and got out of the way. But there we are then. That is the situation that we were in then. I'm not quite sure if Kiki was unsighted or insighted or whatever sighted. But there we are then. As these two carry on their fight then, I'm not quite sure they've realised that they've been in the fight with people who are actually racing for the win. But there we go. Equaz then is now back in contention then with Jinner then. Geordie Boxdale 2 seconds behind then is looking to get himself a very good P2 here with Jinner's penalty, or penalties I should say, as we go through then into Sector 3 now as well. Right then, well, can he actually catch up now in the next few laps or so? Now he's got some DRS I think then on the ghost cars then, that of course have been affecting the race leaders on the previous few laps. But there we go then. Gorda then has dropped down to P4, then Kiki into P5, then Lucas Percy then is into P6 then, but now trying to challenge I think with the Racing Bull then for that P5 position as well here. No penalties then for Lucas Percy then. He will be very happy with this. He's got himself past then on the final corner already actually, to be fair, so he's got himself a position already without the DRS assistance then. This is now onto the main straight we go then. DRS is now open for the Kick Sauber, heading down the main straight then. And he is up into P5 and takes the place then as well. Then Reflection and Justify are battling into Sector 3. Goodness me, that is close indeed. And they are going to go side by side through the stadium section there as well then, which is great stuff indeed. We've got a nice view on board from Ginger Age, who's got himself past Reflection actually then into the exit of the stadium and up into P10 here as well. Then now trying to charge down or chase down Justify as well. As go on to the main straight here. Justify has used up all of his battery, and more yellow flags then fluttering then for a Red Bull this time as well. Justify has lost out to both Ginger Age and to Reflection. Reflection up into P10 here as well, then heading into turn 1 on lap 66. Then 5 laps to go, goodness me, at the end of this one. And it is it's been pretty good so far, so good then, as Sickers Muck then has got himself a penalty as well then. Penalties are rolling in then as well. I'm not quite sure, maybe he hasn't realised that he is a lapped car then, but there we go. As we head through then, Vessia's got the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. Unfortunately we're going to have to double check that, because you need to be in the car to be setting the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, and we can't tell if Vessia is there or not then, to be honest. I think actually he might be now, because he has made 2 stops then in the last few laps or so to pit on the soft compound tyres. Yeah, it's a bit of an odd one, that. Right, now into the final dying embers then of this Mexican Grand Prix. Then this is where it's going to get spicy indeed. Then Geordie Boxtel has got himself in contention now with 8 lap younger tyres as well for potentially the race win here in Mexico City. Then so far it's been a pretty good race. Then unfortunately 5 drivers then have given up then in the pit lane. Then in this race there has not been a safety car just yet then, unless I jinxed it now. There's been 1 VSC then I think for Mumford then having a spin in this part of the circuit. And as we go through, then here comes Geordie. Then Geordie's shaping for a move then into P2. Yes, he has done it. He's up into P2 and then passing Equaz into the stadium section now as well. Brilliant stuff indeed. Now Equaz then down to P3. Then Equaz then is on the older medium compound tyres. Geordie Boxtel is looking to go for the race lead then on his well, not newer, but slightly newer or slightly fresher medium compound tyres as well. Then heading on to the main straight on lap 68 here as we go down towards turn 1 once again then. Equaz coming back at him though. Equaz is coming back at him then in towards the first chicane. Then goodness me, I can't see. There we go. There is a better view as we go through then into the first chicane. Then my God, then you cannot tell what is going on there at all. Then so unfortunately that is going to be a bit of a problem then I think for the drivers who are not adhering to the blue flags. Let's just put it that way. There we go. Then Vessia has got himself through and potentially on the soft compound tyres could try and get himself away now as well then. But the problem I think is with the other drivers as well then who are not on the faster tyre. Then they are just in this gaggle at the moment then, which is causing a few issues then I think for drivers then in the fight then as well then. But there we go. Right then, Geordie Boxtel then is on a mission now. He's got himself a potential challenge for a race win here as we go into the stadium section then for the 68th time here. 3 laps remaining at the end of this one then, 69, 70 and 71 then, and we can put Mexico to sleep then for that for the time being, because it's been a very long race for me. I got very tired. Vessia set the fastest lap of the race then. Here comes Geordie Boxtel. I'm not quite sure even as well why Sick as Muck is using the ghost car to try and get a slipstream, because it doesn't work like that with ghost cars. But nonetheless, there we are as we go through into turn 1 now. Geordie then couldn't mount a charge then for the race lead, but I think on penalties then on track then he's going to get the not on track I should say then, but on the penalty situation he's going to get the win regardless as well. Then Geordie is going to be in contention then for that race lead. Equaz then could be in contention for that P2 then, but again there's a McLaren then that's sort of causing a few problems for Equaz, and that's not good. But there we go. Lucas Percy then up into P4, then back up into P4 I should say, and he's done a brilliant job then after 3 stops now I should say, from soft to medium then for Lucas Percy. Then he's done a brilliant job then in this race then to do a 3-stop strategy. Then Justify has passed Ginger Rage, then I think Reflection then thinking about a move as well then into the first chicane then on lap 69, but not quite then. And there is a what is this Ferrari doing is the question then, because I don't think he's got I don't think he knows what he's doing then, does Sick as Muck. But there we go, as Astrodron and Sick as Muck then are also in a bit of a squabble as well. So there we are then, unfortunately for Sick as Muck. I think he's had a bit of a problem there somewhere. Here comes Geordie then on the attack then, lap 70, the penultimate lap of the Grand Prix. Then here he comes then in towards turn 1. Then can he make a move? He can't. He's losing time actually down the straight compared to Jinner. So Jinner has got enough battery saved up then, it looks like, to try and fend off the Haas then, especially on this lap. Then but can Geordie then save it up then for the next lap, the final lap then, the final time he's going to have DRS down that main straight as well then. Ginger Age has been passed by Reflection then into sector 3. Then Ginger Age now down to P11 here as we go through. Then Geordie has got himself through then, has he? There's contact between Jinner then and Geordie Boxtel as well as we go through then into the mini stadium section there. There's more ghosting going on. Ginger Age has picked up another penalty as well here. My goodness me. So that's interesting. So there we are then. I'm not quite sure why Jinner was fighting that so hard then, because as well he's got 6 seconds of penalties then. Geordie has no penalties, so I'm not quite sure, and he's got much older tyres as well then. So yeah, a bit of an odd one to try and call that one. But there we are as we go through into the stadium section. I think Geordie might be able to get himself a 1-second gap then if he nails this section I should say then. Yes, he has done brilliant stuff indeed from Geordie, and away he goes then onto the final lap of the Grand Prix. Then here we are then on to lap 71 of 71 then as we cruise then onto the final lap. Now I thought Geordie then almost ran out of fuel. It looked like he ran out of fuel. The ERS light flashing away then. Unfortunately, that's going to bring Jenner back into contention here down this straight then. And Geordie needs to be very careful then into turn one. Geordie, unfortunately, Virginia is too far back then to make a move then into that into that first corner, I should say, then onto the final lap of the Grand Prix now. And Equaz then is well, Equaz is caught up in this as well then, isn't he? So I'm not quite sure what is going on here. Jenner might lose out to the podium places because Lucas Percy is now within 6 seconds of him as well. So Jenner could be demoted off the podium now as well here. Geordie then going through into the mini baseball section, then into sector 2, then sector 2 and 3 to be completed then for Geordie Boxtel to win the Mexican Grand Prix then on circuit here tonight then. So far so good then. Geordie of course has got much younger tyres. It's not going to be too much difference now as they go through this section now as well, then, because the tyres on Geordie's car are just getting into their best life as well now, I think, as we go through into the stadium section here. And there we go then. I think Geordie then going through into this final few corners now. Geordie then through into the penultimate corner now. He's run out of fuel, I think, then, and that could open the door for Jenner then to go back through. Then can Jenner go back through? Yes, he can. And Geordie then has run out of fuel. Equaz is going to win the Grand Prix. Equaz has done it then. Equaz wins here in Mexico then. A fantastic drive. Equaz then in the Williams then has extended his championship lead with a brilliant drive. Then he has won the Grand Prix by 35 thousandths of a second here in Mexico. 71 laps then, is separated by 35 thousandths of a second at the end of it as well then. My goodness me. And what a race win then from Equaz then. Brilliant stuff indeed. He's got himself a top spot on the podium then after all of that. Brilliant stuff. Well done indeed then from Equaz then. We didn't see it coming. Then Geordie ran out of fuel, unfortunately for Geordie then, in the penultimate corner then. And that has cost him the race win then by 35 thousandths of a second then. But a podium nonetheless then. Brilliant stuff indeed then from Geordie in the Haas then. Lucas Percy in P3. A brilliant drive then to Percy. For Percy then a 3-stop then for Percy as well then into the podium onto the podium places then from pole position as well. What a fantastic result then from Equaz, from Geordie Boxtel and from Lucas Percy to round off the podium places. And well done indeed then to all those who actually finished the race as well then, because that was well, it seemed like everyone was giving up at one point, so that was fantastic stuff indeed then from those who actually gave a yes and got to the finish line. But brilliant stuff. There is your we'll run through the classification, then we'll run through the podium first then, because there is your podium sitter then of the top step. Then Equaz then in the Williams end wins the Grand Prix then. It was Geordie Boxtel in the Haas then in P2 and Lucas Percy in the Kick Sauber in P3. There we go then. And I'm not quite sure if the people have been added to the podium then. But there is the classification then for the Mexican Grand Prix. Then Equaz wins with a fantastic finish. Then it seemed like a Geordie Boxtel was going to win that Grand Prix quite significantly. Then Geordie Boxtel P2, then Lucas Percy P3, Jenner P4, Gordo in P5, Kiki in P6, then R2 Beat P7, Lewis Riley in P8, Reflection P9, Ginger Rage rounds off the top 10, then Justify P11, Astrodron P12, then Sickers Muck P13, Vessia P14, Hungry Stars P15, Mumford Pit and Quit then in P16, Coop in P17, Pit and Quit, as did Kamara Racer in P18, Swan Shanks in P19, and Young Lights in P20. And I think I'm going to do a Thanos here and do it myself. So bear with me 1 second whilst I get the oh no, I want to add players, don't I? Add players, EQ for Equaz, Jord for Geordie, and Luke for Percy. There we go. Right then, we'll get ourselves some interviews underway then, shall we? And yeah, bear with me 1 second whilst I jump into the party then. But fantastic stuff indeed then in this Mexican Grand Prix. Absolutely epic stuff indeed as well then to the finish. We will crack on then with our interviews then very shortly if they join. But if not, then a fantastic Grand Prix indeed then. Thank you very much for joining us as well then for those who did. And hopefully you were entertained. I was definitely entertained as well. I'm very sweaty, but that is that then. But there we go then. Fantastic stuff indeed then from all the podium drivers of course then, but of course those drivers who got themselves the checker flag. Well done to Ginger Rage as well for getting a point. And there we go then. Fantastic stuff indeed. Unfortunately Equaz can't join, but congratulations to Equaz for the win. All right then, we are done and dusted then in Mexico. I think we'll just leave it there and we'll crack on then to Mexico in a week's time. Or no, to Brazil in a week's time now for 100%. And we'll see you there. So GG's.